people watched the fight and support one of the fighters. The guy was thrown back a fair distance. He was coughing. His weapon fell out of his hands. He was exhausted. He was breathing heavily. The crowd watched what was happening. The young man's opponent stood up straight and asked what had happened. He smiled evilly and said that he was a weakling of this world. 2 years ago, Fortress City Lamour. Temple. Many people stand at the altar. The girl says that at that altar they will be able to receive a gift. She turned to Kai and asked if he was worried. The boy's name is Kai Heinemann. He confirmed his friend's words about the excitement. The girl asked if everything was really okay. He answered that yesterday he did everything about the gift and could not sleep. The girl began to spin around. She kept thinking about what her gift would be. The young man thinks that this day has finally come. The day when he will receive the gift as a divine blessing. A gift is a special skill that all people receive at age 13, as a blessing from the gods. Gifts come in different forms. Some are skilled with weapons like swords or spears, some use magic, and some turn ordinary objects into precious ones. The gift received today will determine the future of that person. The young man spoke about his childhood friend Renaud Groth. She was always such a free spirit. The girl talked about becoming a princess. Kai told her that she would not become a princess. Changing the topic, Rena asked about what gift her friend wanted. He replied that he would like something with swords. However, this was a lie. He doesn't want any swords. His grandfather, who is called the Sword Sage, wants that. He wants the hero to become the heir to the Heinemann family's sword arts. But the young man himself wants something else. His real desire is to get the gift to become an ideal hunter, like his mother. Hunters explore lands and magical places around the world and fight monsters. And he wants to be that hunter who will live adventures. Kai thinks that even if he receives the gift of the sword, he doesn't have any talent for it. And his memory is so-so. And among his peers, he is not among the strongest. Rena asked about whether the cat is a gift. The young man replied that a cat is not a gift either, and he himself thinks that if cousin Roman becomes the heir, it will be good. He is talented. Suddenly, there was a bright flash. Rena asked what it was. Kai assumed that someone had received a rare gift again. He looked at what was happening with surprise. Someone was running towards them. A girl named Layla ran towards the heroes, shouting their names. They greeted her. Rena asked what happened. Kai was surprised that she finished earlier. The girl said that she had received the gift of a high-ranking swordsman. There is nothing surprising about this. This is Layla Helna, the protagonist's childhood friend. She is the only girl in Remora who can match Heinemann's swordsmanship. She is also his fiancée. All this was decided by the parents without their consent. The guy watched the girls talking and smiled. Someone turned to Kai and asked if he was next. It was Kim and Roman. Keech waved and smiled at his friend. Roman walked towards the hero. He asked about his gift. However, the young man put his hand on his shoulder and pushed him aside. He approached Layla and wanted to tell her about his gift, but she interrupted him and said that she knew everything and saw it. She said this without emotion. Roman bowed to her and said that he understood everything. He looked askance at his cousin. Kai looked at his cousin in bewilderment. Someone turned to Layla. The man said that he was one of the Holy Magic Knights. They needed to talk about her gift and invited her to step aside for a minute. Layla agreed but warned that her gift was not like Roman's, not so rare. The man explained that it was because she was the daughter of the Helna clan. Such heights cannot be achieved in a day. The gift of a supreme swordsman comes to someone who is trained in martial arts every day. The old man invited her to their negotiating base in Raymer. The young man was surprised that they had a base in Ramor for negotiations. 2. Roman nudged Layla and said that it was time for them to go. Then he turned and looked at Kai with disdain. The girl said goodbye to her friends. They waved back. Kitch turned to Kai. He apologized for Roman and said that he was simply in a dizzy state. He replied that nothing. He understood everything, and then he told Keech not to lag behind. He agreed and ran towards Roman and Lyle. Reyna called Kai and said that the line had moved. The girl approached the table with the ball and put her hand on it. The priest was very surprised. And then he said that her gift was a holy sword. People started talking about it and saying how great it was. Spear King, Guild Master, and now Holy Sword. This year is crazy. One of the knights says that the appearance of high gifts means an increase in the powers of demons. It turns out that the onset of demons is already close. The priest heard their conversation and asked them not to cause unnecessary panic. They apologized. It was Kai's turn. The priest told him to introduce himself and place his hand on the crystal. The boy touched the crystal and felt something. He didn't understand what it was. His body suddenly felt heavy. Something was holding him back. He had heard that there were some limitations to the gift. Then he noticed that the light of the crystal was fading, although it had just been burning. The priest began to analyze the boy's gift. He first looked at the crystal, then at the boy, and declared that his gift was the weakest in this world. Present time. Lamour training ground. Roman asks what is happening to Kai, the weakling of this world. There is a fight between them. The crowd supports Roman. Someone shouts that Kai is not the weakling of the whole world, but the weakling of this world. The protagonist fights with all his might. But he made a small mistake. He gave his cousin an opportunity to strike. He struck him in the forehead. The young man flew back. The guy lost consciousness. And when he opened it, he didn't understand why everything was spinning around. And then he remembered that because of Roman, he lost consciousness. Layla ran up to Kai and asked about his condition. He said her name. She decided to help him get up. The girl realized what had hit him right in the face. Most likely, there would be a bump. The girl's chest was too close to the guy, so he blushed and said that he could get up himself. Layla started to apply ointment to the boy's forehead. He thanked her and said that he was already fine. He was used to this. Ever since the day he received the gift of the weakest in this world, such things have become commonplace for him. The gift of impotence is that his physical strength is rapidly declining. Moreover, no matter how much he trained, his strength only left him. On the training ground, he is worse than girls and children who do not practice at all. None of his former friends from training talk to him. They avoid him in fights. Blood and fractures have become normal for him. Now in Lamour, he can count on the fingers of one hand the people who treat him like before, including Layla. He became the weakest and lost his position as the Heinemann heir, and that day, our engagement with Layla was also broken off. From now on, he is nobody. Neither the heir of the sword art of Heinemann, nor the wedded one of Layla Helna. A simple weakling, lower than anyone else, Kai Heinemann. The main character said that everything was fine, nothing special. The girl looked at him sadly and said his name. She sat down next to him and asked him when he would go to the capital. He replied that it would be soon. It was hard for him here in Lamour. If he is in the capital, then at least for a little while, there will be a place where he will be treated like a human being. At first, Layla looked at him seriously, then smiled and suggested that he find a job there. He replied that although this is what his mother wanted, he had other plans. The World Academy of Weibel. There are those who have no gift and losers like him. Maybe there is work there. The girl repeated his words about Weibel. Kai said that he would write her letters if it would calm her down. But she stood up abruptly and said that it was not necessary. The girl simply smiled and said that she needed to pack her things. She said goodbye to the guy. He looked after her, stood up, and thought that he also needed to go to his grandfather. Someone called out to him. It was Roman, who said with an arrogant expression that he was actually the one with the gift of the Spear King. And there was no trace of Kai and Layla's engagement. He was also from the Heinemann family, and he was from a side branch. He had the right to be with her. Only he had the right. Kai exhaled. He said that it would be up to Layla herself to decide whether to leave. Roman asked where he got such self-confidence from. Would she really choose him, the weakest? Kai replied that he and his cousin had completely different feelings. He was worrying about it for nothing. Someone called Roman. It was the guy from the arena. He told him to stop talking to the weakest and come back quickly. They needed to continue training. The man does not understand why he is wasting his precious time on this useless person. He said that he is already on his way. Finally, Roman told the protagonist not to approach Layla anymore. Kai thought that he and Layla were like brother and sister. He wanted to say that he had no feelings for her. Kai is on his knees and thanks the girl for taking care of him all this time. The old man apologized for the fact that his grandson was so battered. The young man didn't understand what he was talking about. He explained that his engagement with Layla was broken off. It turns out that he was throwing him out of here. Kai said that he didn't care at all. The old man looked at his grandson in surprise. He explained that his relationship with Layla had always been brotherly. His dream was to go to the capital, or Weibel. That's why he wasn't upset at all. The grandfather said his grandson's name, and then he started laughing. The young man didn't understand what was going on. He said that he was getting old. Sometimes, he sees something cloudy in his eyes. With such clear eyes, there will be no problems. He allowed him to go to the capital and do whatever he wanted. The guy thanked him. Kai thinks that his true dream is not to inherit the art of the sword, but to go to Weibel. but maybe he sees right through it. The old man said that no matter what his gift, he was his family. Nothing would change that, he could always come back. This was his home. The young man was surprised, but then said that he didn't belong here. He wanted to say that he wouldn't come back here again. However, the old man began to scold him and told her to come back to see him. The hero replied that he understood everything and would do so. The old man stood up and said that the conversation was over. Grandpa asked him to take care of himself. The boy smiled, agreed, and also told his grandfather to be careful. The young man was left alone in the room and lowered his head. Adjusting his clothes, the young man thought that it was his turn. He had to go to Wobble, the place of all hunters, and maybe he had a chance to become a hunter. He had to fulfill his dream and become a hunter in Wobble. Kai approached the sign. He was looking for a carriage stand. He suggested that you turn here. Suddenly, he noticed a luxurious carriage nearby. He became interested in who was riding in such a carriage. Suddenly, someone said his name. There was some girl there. She introduced herself as Rosemary. Kai thought that the same name was the saint of the Amelia Kingdom. However, that couldn't be the case. The girl bowed and said that she would accompany him to the capital. She was glad to meet him. She also added that he could call her Rose, and smiled. There was a girl standing behind her. The guy noticed her. He was trying to say something when suddenly the stranger's eyes widened. In a matter of seconds, she was next to the young man and scared him. He looked at her with surprise or even shock. Anna said that it was disrespectful and called him the weakest. However, Rosemary shouted her name, thus stopping her. She ordered her to stop and explained that she had volunteered to accompany him. Her actions were disgracing both her and his grandfather, the Saint Swordsman. Anna asked for forgiveness. Marie asked her to be more restrained. The guy was shocked. A man came up behind the girl and said that Anna did it out of respect for them. Rose hissed. Then she slapped herself on the cheeks to cheer herself up. The young man did not understand what was happening. Rosemary turned to Kai Heinemann. She urged him to hurry up and get into the carriage. The young man was discouraged. He is surprised that aristocrats like this exist. Kai mentally thanked his grandfather for the carriage, but was it possible to travel with such people? People made a halt. The protagonist thought that it was already evening. He noticed that time was flying by in the capital. At that time he was standing in line for food. It was his turn to get food. The cook told him to come quickly. The young man came to his senses and apologized. They poured him some soup and gave him a piece of bread. The cook said that this was an order from Lord Frankton and called the next one. Kai recalls his grandfather's words about him paying for the trip and assumed that there was a special fee for the trip. The young man was passing by a man, and this man took and nudged him with his elbow. The hero fell to the ground very painfully and dropped his tray. He noticed that even the bread was spoiled. He turned to express his indignation when suddenly the man asked what the young man was doing. The man asked why he was pushing him. The young man tried to object. However, the man did not listen to him and started kicking him. He talked about how he might have been injured and continued to bully the guy. Other people see it but ignore it. Someone yelled at the man to stop. It was Anna. The stranger recognized her. He asked her what she was planning. Was she really protecting him? She replied that she was not protecting him. However, it was Mrs. Rose's prize to have him as a guest. Suddenly, they heard something and turned their heads towards the sound. There was a man standing there with a huge sword. He asked what the noise was about. The stranger who had been bullying Kai hissed and left, saying that he was very hungry. The protagonist turned to thank Anna, but she was already leaving. She turned her head and said angrily that if it weren't for the order, she wouldn't have covered him. She advised him to come back quickly. The girl walked towards that man. She greeted him. He nodded his head at her. Then he went to Kai and noted that the locals were causing trouble again. This man's name is Arnold. He turned to Kai and apologized. He bowed and said that the rudeness of his people was his fault. He apologized again. The guy asked him to stop. He explained that this happens all the time. He is seen in the capital as someone who has been given the gift of being a complete loser. He has no choice. He has already gotten used to it. The man was surprised by his words. Then he straightened up and said his name. He suggested going to his tent and getting something to eat. The young man said that it would be too much. They approached the tent. Arnold asked the chief about whether he had heard anything. He replied that it was Lord Frankton's order. Arnold did not want to hear anything. He grabbed him by the collar and ordered him to bring his food here. The man got scared and ordered his staff to put Kai's portion as quickly as possible. Arnold exhaled, realizing what was happening. The guy's tray was bursting with food. Kai thanked Arnold. He told him that there was no need for gratitude, he had the right to it. He also added that the main character is still a child and needs to eat more to grow. Then he decided to do something, and his smiling face suddenly turned dark. He decided to go and talk to Lord Frankton. He also told the boy not to worry about that man. It wouldn't happen again. The young man was surprised that such people still exist in this world. 3 days later. The Great Silka Forest. The boy's tray is full of food again. He thought that since that time they always put so much in his hands. He passed someone and flinched. He thought that he would be pushed again, but it didn't happen. He noticed that they stopped bullying him. He was amazed by Arnold's influence. Evening. The young man lies in a tent and thinks about Kim and Rina. Rina is a holy sword, and Keech is a great magician. Keech said that he will go to the capital to study. Rina joined the squad fighting demons. He continued to think. Suddenly someone called him. It was Rosemary. He allowed her to come in. She walked in and sat on her knees opposite him. Kai didn't understand why Rose would come to him. To tell the truth, it was a bad idea. If someone saw her, they would start hating him again. He wanted to ask her about what was happening, but she interrupted him and asked for forgiveness. The young man was taken aback. Rose said that she heard from Era about what the knights did to him. Kai asked her not to worry about it. What happened, happened. The girl said that she had decided to go with him to the capital and had asked his grandfather for it. He scratched his head. He asked her why she wanted to go at all. She answered that he was a friend of Rina and Keech. Kai was surprised that she knew both of them. Rose explained that the chief court magician is her teacher, and Keech is also his student, and Rina is her close friend. The young man thought that this girl could really be a saint, because she was studying with the main court magician. He assumed that she had learned about him from them. The girl confirmed everything. She also added that Rina only talks about him. She probably knows more about you than about Keech. Kai is sure that his friend told all the stupid things about him from the past. Now he understood why she went with him. She wanted to meet the one with whom they were so close. The young man thought about it and asked if Rina was doing well in the squad. She replied that she was doing well. She had such an open heart. All the knights liked her right away. The hero smiled sincerely. He was glad to hear it. He noticed that she was always different from everyone else. He really couldn't help but worry about her. Rose laughed. Suddenly, someone entered the tent. It was Anna. She looked at the guy angrily. Then she smiled and told Mrs. Rose that it was time for her to rest. The girl said that they had already talked enough and it was time to go to bed. Kai thought that Anna was scaring him. The hero thanked Rose for telling him a lot. She answered what she found very interesting, and said that they would chat later. Anna at that time looked menacingly at the guy. The girl said goodbye to the guy. He went into the tent hoping to go to sleep. However, Arnold came to him. He apologized for being so late. The hero asked what happened. He replied that it was nothing important. He just wanted to say thank you. The young man did not understand what he was being thanked for. The man thanked him for talking to Rose after what happened. She said she was able to have a heart-to-heart talk with him. He was so glad about that. Kai asked him to stop talking like that. He should be the one thanking her for talking to him, a loser. The man said the boy's name. Arnold said that he was not a hero, but he also had a bad gift, so he sympathized with him so much. The young man was very surprised that he had a bad gift too. He replied that he could tell only him about it. He told him to be strong, and all efforts would be rewarded. At the same time, in the mountains in the middle of the Silka Forest, 2 men are standing. They noticed Lord Frankton. He asked them how things were going. They replied that they were doing great. They are in full combat readiness. They have an elite squad of the Empire. Siege of Black Panthers and Ogres. Now that there are 2 of them, not even a rat will run past them. The man said that the detachment was under the command of Lord Enns. He had heard many rumors about them. He replied that he did not like unfounded rumors and then asked about the princess. The lord replied that Princess Rose had spoken to a worthless traitor. She was resting now. Then they would make a fuss. They would separate the knight captain and the princess from each other, and then they would follow the plan. If Princess Rose is disposed of, the next contender for the throne will be Lord-backed Prince Gilbert. The young man said that betraying the royal family they serve was unthinkable for them, soldiers of the Empire. Lord Frankton wondered what Lord Zignal was trying to say about them being shameless. He replied that he could say that, but it would be rude of him, and asked for forgiveness. The old man shouted that they knew nothing about them. This was outrageous, and he should take it back. Zignil pointed out that they still wanted to buy it. He replied that they did not want to buy her, they would only marry her off. The other man asked Zignil to shut up. Lord Enz apologized for his comrade. He explained that Toll was irritated because they were on foreign soil. The old man said that they were all on edge. There was no point in fighting now, he decided to leave. And before leaving, he said that he was counting on Lord Zignil and Enz. The time will come soon. The time to banish the princess from the country. With him is the best fighting force in the Glitonir Empire, 2 out of 6 commanders. They will definitely not lose. This annoying Princess Rose will never become queen. If that happens, the aristocratic order will be destroyed to its foundations. He has a duty to protect the aristocracy. A family with a long history of serving the royal court for a great cause. Such are the Franktons. Looking at the moon, the man said that he was faithful to Prince Gilbert. Kai decided to go to the toilet before going to bed. He walked and thought that he could have gone not far from the tent, but suddenly someone would see him. He still couldn't find the right place, but then he saw some bush. When he got there, he saw someone reading some kind of spell and summoning someone. They looked at each other. The main character was very scared. He didn't understand what it was. Why was there a man here at night in the middle of the forest? It seemed like he wasn't with them. Kai asked if this man really lived here. The stranger replied that there was no such information. He said that it could be considered an accident. Then it won't interfere with the plan, maybe have a little fun. The man smiled slyly. Something pierced the protagonist. The stranger assumed that the young man wanted to run and then told him to run as fast as he could, and then he snapped his fingers. Suddenly, out of nowhere, various demonic creatures appeared. Kai Heinemann started to run, breathing heavily. He thought about what it was. Who was that man? Why did he unleash monsters on him out of nowhere? Why did he want to take his life? The guy hadn't done anything to him. He didn't understand why him. The guy can't breathe. His heart is aching, his head is hurting, and he's spinning. His legs are already creaking. Why are they so slow at such an important moment? He asks for the heat to ease up just a little bit. Kai can already hear their footsteps behind him. If they catch up with him, it will be the end. But he still has to get to Wobble and become a hunter. He doesn't want that ending. The young man does not understand why this always happens only to him. It is all because of the gift. Because of the gift of the weakest of this world. It was the same in Ramur, in the carriage too, and here, in the camp. Everything repeats itself over and over again. And it's because of the gift that everything goes wrong. He thinks that it would have been better if he had been given the swordsman's gift. And still a hunter. That way he could have stayed in Ramur. He could have become the heir to the Heinemann swordsmanship, married Layla, seen Rena and Keech, lived a simple life, been an ordinary man. Will his life really end in this deserted forest because of monsters? It would be better if there was no gift. The young man ran to the waterfall. He realized that there was nowhere to go. Was this really how it would all end here? Suddenly he noticed a light inside the waterfall. Hearing the monsters approaching, he didn't think long. He had no choice. He had no choice. He had to go, and he went inside the waterfall. Kai found himself in some deserted area. He looked at it all in shock. He didn't understand how it happened. He had just been in the forest, and there was no way out. The guy started laughing and fell to his knees. Even though he didn't understand anything, at least he was able to escape from the demons. He assumed that it might be a cave with a trap. Suddenly he saw a building and decided to go there to rest in the shade. He went inside and was surprised. It was a temple. Kai walked inside and saw a slab with the outline of someone's hand. He didn't understand what it was and decided to put his hand to it. When I placed my hand on this imprint, the slab began to glow. The magic circle in the middle of the room began to glow. The young man did not understand what had happened. A system window appeared, confirming access for holders of gifts of divine rank and above, attempting to register Kai Heinemann as a player. The young man read all the information described and thought that there was some kind of mistake. The system welcomed him to the divine test. The guy did not understand what was happening. They decided to start the continue button. The rules have been revealed. Rule 1. You cannot escape from here until you finish the game. Rule 2. Players who register here do not age, since time in the other world is suspended. 3. The player will be given an item box, the special assessment skill, fast boots, and unbreakable stick. 4. The maximum amount of elixir that can be put into the item box is 20 cans. The hero was surprised by the existence of rules. If this is a game, then this building is a dungeon. But such places are usually captured by a whole group of hunters. You can't cope here alone. However, time will be stopped everywhere, and even after clearing this place, he will return to the monsters again. The young man did not believe what was happening. He thought that there was no point in this. He tried to calm himself down. He needed to think it over carefully. The player would be given items. One of them was a box of items. A box appeared next to him. The young man was frightened. Inside were fast boots and an unbreakable stick. Kai began to understand how to operate this box. The boots fell out of her faster. He was surprised by their appearance. Then he thought about putting them away and they disappeared. They disappeared, but appeared in the storage. Kai was glad that it was all real. Such a box would be precious to anyone. And the fourth thing they gave him was the assessment skill. He decided to use it on the fast boots. Speed boots, shoes that are likely to help him escape from the enemy. However, when the battle began on the owner's water, they lose their effect. Item rank is excellent. The young man hears for the first time that it is possible to quickly escape. He assumed that it was a precious object. Then the idea came to him to evaluate his own body. Kai Heinemann, 15 years old. Health, 3, mana, 5. A gift from the one with the least ability. Although the gift's power and growth rate are the lowest, under certain conditions it can be increased in all areas. Gift level is divine. The hero read the words that under certain conditions it is possible to increase the strength of heat. He thought that this was somehow incomprehensible. Could this really be a gift that rewards labors? Little is clear about the gift. They won't expect much yet. And the elixir. It should be here somewhere. He decided to try the appraisal skill first. The young man found the source of the elixir. He thought it would be in a bottle, but here it just flows. Kai decided to check how it works. He cut his palm and put it under the elixir fountain. Everything healed in a second. He thought that was really cool. He, who is called the weakest in the world, was able to obtain an item box and an appraisal skill. He also discovered an endless fountain of elixir. For this, he will be accepted into the Hunters Guild with open arms. And then he can become a hunter like his mother. Now Kai has a special assessment skill, his own knife better than a stick, an item box with an elixir inside, and fast boots. The young man said that he had the equipment. All that was left was to get out of here. The main character reached the dungeon. It was cool there. He tried to calm himself down and walk along the wall, as they wrote in the books. He mentally encouraged himself. He would try to do this, because this was the adventure he had dreamed of. Suddenly, the wall ended. He assumed that it was a crossroads and looked out to see where to go next. However, a terrible monster was waiting for him here. It was a large insect that bit his hand. The hero started screaming. He didn't understand what was happening. He was very scared. The creature injured his arm. Blood gushed from his wound. Suddenly, the guy started screaming and falling somewhere. The next moment, he was at the source of the elixir. He lowered his mangled hands and head into it. He didn't understand where he was. Then he remembered that his mother was calling him. He needed to go to the capital. He rode in a cart for a week, then he was in the camp. He talked to Rose, and then when he came out of the tent, the man with red hair suddenly attacked. Here the young man came to and emerged from the fountain. He began to cough and look around. He noticed the source of the elixir, and remembered how the overgrown grasshopper had torn off his arm. Then he remembered his injured right arm. Kai looked at his hand and was amazed. There was no trace of the wound left. He began to laugh. He lay on the stone floor and spoke of the miraculous properties of this elixir and his luck in escaping from the monster. But no elixir will restore his clothes. Everything is torn and covered in his blood. The young man understands that everything that is happening is not a dream. Everything that was there really happened. He turned towards the entrance and thought that in order to get out of here he would have to go into the dungeon again. This time he was saved by chance, but who knows what will happen next time. The monster bit the protagonist's neck. He suddenly opened his eyes. He started screaming and covering himself. He didn't understand why this was happening to him all the time. It was the 7th day. The hero was watching the strange worms. He was irritated. He had nothing. Today is the 7th day, and he has no food at all. He will die of hunger. Poisonous beetle. A highly poisonous insect that dissolves in stomach acid and can instantly kill anyone if eaten. Also contains many nutrients. Looking at the worm, the guy says that this worm contains nutrients. Yes, there is poison there that can take the life of even a dragon. It was the 15th day. All this time the hero drinks only the elixir. But it is not very effective. However, he decides to drink a little more. Kai took the poisonous beetle in his hand and thought that he had to eat something or he would die. An empty stomach was worse than hell. He ate the creature. He felt very ill. Everything turned red before his eyes. It was death. The system reported that the conditions for obtaining the skill, resistance to weak poisons, were met. The guy was surprised that he was alive. Skill, resistance to weak poisons. Conditions for obtaining the skill, survive after eating a poisonous creature. Condition for increasing the rank, survive even after eating 100 creatures that contain 100 lethal doses of poison. Kai was glad that the elixir was useful, but his condition was ruined. He stood up, and his head ached. The hero wandered towards the source of the elixir. After drinking the elixir, his headache went away. This elixir helps him a lot. The young man thought that he felt as if he had eaten his fill. From now on, there would be no problems with food. However, it was strange to eat only beetles. It was the 100th day. The guy had improved his weak poison resistance skill to the middle rank. Kai was glad that no matter how many bugs he ate, he would not die. However, is this a reason for joy? A year later, Kai is training and thinking that it makes his head spin. He decides to just keep learning fencing. 10 years have passed. Kai thinks about how 10 years have passed. He wonders how the others are. However, he remembers that time has stopped. 40 years have passed. The guy stands with a stick in his hands and prepares for battle. He says that today's opponent will be Roman. The hero rushed to attack. Roman managed to repel the attack. They continue to fight. The next moment, Kai knocked the stick out of Roman's hands. He fell. The hero said that he can finally defeat Roman. Exhaling, the young man said that the imaginary duel was over for today. He thanked Roman. Standing by the wall and twirling the stick, Kai says that he is able to defeat him in such a duel. And yesterday he was able to defeat the teacher, even if it was not real. The system reported that a new skill was received. Skill sword control, beginning. Beginning of fencing. Practice with a sword can improve its characteristics slightly. Conditions for obtaining the skill, every day for 40 years, simulate a sword fight for about 12 hours. The young man hopes that imaginary fights will do. 800 years have passed. A hero boy prepares to fight the legendary heroes of the kingdom. A swordsman who controls swords like limbs. 2 swordsmen Graham. The strongest elf who combines sword and magic. Swordswoman magician Sherba. The old sword emperor from the Glittenier Empire. Ashbon. Kai decided to try to fight with such people. 1500 years later. The protagonist shouted to the legendary heroes that it was too easy for him. He told Graham, Sherba, and Ashban to attack all at once. 3000 years have passed since the beginning of the game. The hero decided to start a fight with someone. He stood with a stick in his hands. He defeated all his opponents. Only he remained. The hero surpassed even the holy sword. Now he is the strongest swordsman in this world. Sword control, the highest degree. The strongest opponent of imagination is Kai Heinemann. The hero rushed to attack himself. The real Kai really likes it. It's a wild fight. The hero raised his stick and said that this was not enough. He struck at his imaginary opponent. And the next moment, he cut off his head. The protagonist announced that Kai Heinemann was ready. The young man obtained the skill, sword control, highest degree. The hero says that the highest ranked Kai has been defeated. Now he has the highest level of sword control. He took out a box of items and decided to snack on some bugs. His poison absorption skill is at the highest rank. The guy assumes that he is here because he ate only bugs. Anything is better than nothing. Exhaling, the hero realized that it was time to go, and so much time had passed. Walking through the dungeon, the hero feels a familiar smell and cool air. He can't resist. Having started his fencing career, waving a stick, he kept thinking about how he would return here. He had completely forgotten that he found it funny. In front of him stood the same monster that attacked him the first time. The young man noticed that this creature was still here and had been in this place for all 3000 years. The protagonist looked at the monster in front of him and thought that this was the highest level. He knew nothing except the name. And his enemy's name was Grasshopper. His health, resistance to magic, durability, magic, strength, intelligence were unknown. An enemy you don't know anything about is very interesting. With a smirk on his face, he repeated his enemy's name again. At the same time, he held a weapon in his hands, ready to attack the monster in front of him at any moment. The main character said that this monster would show him his way, after which he suddenly rushed towards him. The grasshopper, seeing this, began to shout loudly at him. After that, the monster decided to attack Kai. He swung his paw and then hit right next to the hero. The latter turned his head to the side and looked at it, after which he said that he was sorry, it was too direct and slow. It was obvious that the grasshopper was getting angry, especially when Kai hit him with a weapon right in his face. The monster immediately swung its huge hind leg at him. The latter was surprised and said that he also uses his legs in battle. The protagonist put his weapon in front of him for the next attack of the grasshopper, thus he blocked the blow and did not receive any damage, but the monster did not stop, after which Kai exhaled heavily. The protagonist told him that he really was a grasshopper, since he was doing such things. He looked closely at the monster in front of him, while holding his weapon tightly in his hands. Kai closed his eyes and said that he would be sorry to use this technique on the grasshopper, but, so be it, he would show him everything he could. The protagonist used the sword control skill, namely its first form, the line of death. The monster at this time did not understand what was happening, he carefully watched what was happening. The grasshopper looked seriously ahead. He made some kind of incomprehensible sound, but a moment later his head split into two parts. The protagonist dealt a few more blows to the monster. After that, he dropped to one knee, resting it on the floor, while his enemy crumbled into pieces. After a while, Kai stood up, he shook his weapon from the blood, and behind him was a defeated enemy. He turned over his shoulder at him, traces of grasshopper blood were visible on his cheek. The protagonist looked at the pieces of the monster scattered on the ground, and thought that it was boring for him, while he turned to his opponent. At that moment, Kai received a message that his stats had been increased. Strength, durability, intelligence, and luck were all 0.2. He thought that in battles against the enemy he was increasing his stats. After he studied the information he received, he looked at the monster again, or rather, at what was left of it. There was not even a smile on the protagonist's face, rather, he was even dissatisfied. Kai thought that they would disintegrate with just one touch, so it was better to always use a sword. At this time, he was on a divine trial in the farthest space. The main character looked around the space and thought that it was too free here. There was an awful lot of space, each level was wider and wider. Kai looked into the system window and saw that there were almost no poisonous beetles left in this area, there were 12 of them. Then the main character moved his gaze to the side and saw a vortex of movement in front of him. He thought that since it was here, could he really lift it up straight away? Kai lowered his gaze to the floor. His face did not express any emotions, neither joy nor sadness. He only spoke outrageously, after which he went down to the monster. The protagonist looked at the remains of the defeated enemies and thought about whether he would have to eat them or not. He said that it was really disgusting. After that, the main character went further down the dungeon. He went down the stairs, and when he came out on the landing, his mouth and eyes were wide open in surprise. In front of him was a killer hornet. It was huge, had a long sting, and had what looked like metal armor on its shoulders and head, and was hovering in the air above the ground. The system issued a message that the player had moved to -10th level. This was confirmed. The first test, the battle with the killer hornet, begins. The protagonist smiled in anticipation and thought that there was a strong opponent prepared for every 10 levels. He was already looking forward to this battle. Kai closed his eyes, took the sword in his hands, and thought that he had just gotten bored with that grasshopper, when suddenly the long-awaited enemy appeared in front of him. The main character opened his eyes. A wide smile spread across his face. He said that they would fight now, but he did not have time to finish. Kai saw that the enemy in front of him suddenly evaporated into thin air. He exclaimed in surprise. And then it was as if a strong stream of wind blew past his face. He felt strong energy flows, and a bright flash of light appeared behind him. As it turned out, he had been attacked by this killer hornet. A blow had been delivered that had torn his arm to shreds from shoulder to elbow. There was a huge hole there. The main character immediately turned to his hand. He thought that his left hand was in really bad shape. There were pieces of meat sticking out, and blood was gushing out. Kai looked at this in shock at first, as he couldn't believe it, after which his face distorted into an anticipatory grimace, and he said that it was okay, nothing terrible had happened. The main character said that he was hurt only on one side, he didn't care at all, and the fact that he had an invisible enemy was just great. This monster definitely deserved to kill him. Kai stood in anticipation before the hornet, holding his weapon in his hand. The monster also stood in front of him first and looked at him, after which he decided to attack it. The protagonist saw that the hornet was evaporating into thin air again. he used his skills, thanks to which he managed to escape from the enemy's direct attack. Kai said that the monster was indeed fast, but it only hit in a straight line, after which he asked him if that was really all he could do. And also the main character told him that, moreover, before making a sharp movement he needs to freeze in place for some time, and he seems to be saying so that he should not touch him. At that moment, the hornet's body began to change. The stinger began to move away from its body. Kai wondered if the monster really had something inside. After the stinger left its body, a small hole was visible. After this, the hornet attacked the main character. Some unknown liquid poured out of his lower body, while Kai stood still and watched all these actions. The main character thought about what it was, a device for flight or poison, after which he said that everything was clear to him. He put his sword in front of him, hoping that he would be able to repel the attack. Kai closed his eyes, and used his sword control skill, namely the third form, which was called Moon Mirror. After that, he suddenly opened them. The liquid that the hornet's system secreted seemed to begin to wrap around his weapon, bypassing the main character himself. Kai grinned, a slight look of satisfaction appearing on his face as he thought about how there was no benefit to him from flying. After that, the main character said that the hornet deserves a response. He swung his weapon towards the monster, and it seemed like he stopped these streams of liquid. As it turned out, with the help of his power, he directed the same liquid towards the hornet itself. It began to corrode its body, and the monster itself began to scream. The hornet continued to make vague sounds. The protagonist wondered if it was really dissolved poison, and if so, why didn't it affect him? However, at that moment, something went wrong. Kai's eyes were wide open, and he even opened his mouth in surprise. He thought that the hornet had been affected by the poison, but in fact, it seemed to have become larger and stronger. At the same time, it screamed loudly. The protagonist thought about whether the monster was still holding on, even though it was a bug, but it seemed to him that the enemy had pride. This was great news. Kai was happy about this fact. After that, the protagonist turned to his sword control skill again. Now he used the second form, which was called Speed Lightning. With this skill, he managed to make a huge hole in the hornet's body. It was as if he had punched right through it, creating a huge hole right in the center. The protagonist said that he was also a fighter, and he would also respond to him with the fastest sword technique. At the same time, he turned to look at his enemy. Kai said that he should lie down. It seemed like an order. Hornet was completely destroyed. He was also cut into pieces by the sword, like the previous enemy. Here, the main character saw a system message that the killer hornet had been defeated. The first test had been passed, and this would give him a special advantage. The protagonist was shocked by the message. He wondered what these special advantages were. He looked in front of him. His eyes were wide open. Right before his eyes, a huge box appeared on the floor in front of him. He asked if it was a treasure chest. It was quite large and had a keyhole on the front. When the protagonist opened the box, he found a flaming sword, Flamberge. Lease. Using atmospheric magic, it sets fire to everything it cuts. The item's rank is the highest. The main character was shocked and wondered if this was really an incendiary sword, after which he thought that everything was clear to him. Flames were coming from it. Kai attached the sword to his equipment and thought that, by and large, he had no problems with the weapon, since he also had an unbreakable stick. It seemed that he was not very happy with the fact that he received such an award. Then the main character had an idea. He thought that if he fried those beetles with his weapon, then at least they would be edible. He immediately imagined this picture of himself frying one of them. Kai said that he would definitely try it next time. It was a find for him after all. After that, he headed to the exit of the floor and thought that it was time for him to go to the next level. After some time, he went down to the next floor. At the same time, he was a little tired, so he held on to the wall so as not to fall down the stairs. There was a lot of smoke in front of him, and the smoke was coming from Paul. The protagonist took a closer look and realized that the entire floor was covered in lava. That's why it was so hot around. Kai looked at the picture in front of him in shock at first, wondering what he was supposed to do here. Then his face lit up and he thought, this is actually pretty cool. The main character said that this is what he calls a test. This is already not bad. Only he won't be able to go forward if only he had fireproof shoes. It was this moment that stopped the guy from taking further steps. Kai immediately thought about his words about fireproof, and then he began to take off his shoes and thought that it would be a good idea to check, and if anything, there was a return vortex nearby. After that, the protagonist opened the item box where he put his speed boots for storage. At the same time, he pulled up his pants as high as possible so that they would not be damaged during the lava test. As soon as Kai put his shoes in the box, he decided to test this lava. He walked up to it, then placed his completely naked foot on it. Suddenly, there was a hissing sound, as if his foot began to burn. The main character had his eyes closed so that his sensations would be more acute, but after a moment he immediately lifted his leg and started screaming that it was very hot. The foot was very red. Kai moved to a safe distance and thought that he couldn't handle it all at once. Then he turned to his box to get the elixir from there, otherwise he would die right now. When he used the elixir, he decided to try stepping on the lava again. He was surprised that now he could hold out for about 10 seconds. At the same time, he had the elixir in his hand so that he could take it at any time if necessary. Then a system message appeared in front of him, which said that he had discovered the skill of resistance to weak fire. It gives immunity to high temperatures. To get it, you need to touch something very hot 50 times. The main character was happy about this event. He said that it was great. He would be able to hold out until the fire was absorbed. After all, time and the elixir were unlimited. It was clear that he was in anticipation. Some kind of plan had already formed in his head. He kept thinking to himself and saying that after he did all this, he would easily run through this place in one go. After that, he started to pass levels. He got fire absorption, then he learned to breathe underwater, and also in the light zone his eyes started to get blinded. He passed from 11 to 300 levels. At level 300, he gained the skills heat resistance, heat absorption, frost resistance, ice absorption, dustproof, dust absorption, trap avoidance, trap identification, trap creation, underwater breathing. It was obvious that the protagonist was very tired of all this. He looked at the system window and thought that he seemed to have received all the resilience skills. He took off his glove, then he began to wipe his face, which was all wet with sweat. He exhaled several times, after which he said that he had to go further. Then it dawned on him that he hadn't realized what kind of glove he had in his hand, that it really belonged to the Thunder Beast. And then it dawned on him that he was drying himself with them instead of a towel. After some time, the main character found himself in some room. Somewhere, there was a drip of something unknown and there was no stairs down, but the passage itself was open. When he looked through it, he saw something like an arena in the distance, and on it was a monster, the king of thunder tigers. He was huge, and thunderbolts emanated from his body and head. He roared loudly. The protagonist thought that this was the last test of the upper levels. The voice said that the battle with the Thunder Tiger King was starting right now. At the same time, he was very tired. The monster immediately moved towards Kai, its paw almost touching the latter's throat and face, but the latter managed to use his sword, thanks to which he quickly cut the tiger into pieces. It felt like it was very easy. The protagonist closed his eyes and said that there was too much noise during this test. Then he turned to the tiger and said that he smelled of weakness. He knew that it would end quickly. Kai heard a voice that said that the Thunder Tiger King had been defeated. At the same time, the same voice exclaimed in surprise that what was happening, it was necessary to wait. He thought about what was happening to that voice. The main character looked down and saw that there was a pond there, in which there was also something. It reminded him of fish that were very huge in size. Then the system voice informed him that he would be given special advantages. Kai couldn't tear his eyes away from the potential opponents. He wondered if he should jump in, and a smile appeared on his face. Without thinking twice, the main character jumped from a height straight into this pond. The system voice choked in surprise and asked what he was doing. At that moment, the main character was already completely immersed in the pond. Huge fish were swimming around him. They were strangely built. So, while he was in the water, a huge fish appeared near him, which had different incomprehensible holes in its body. 2 more fish were swimming near it, which did not look like anyone else. Here the main character turned his head to the side and saw that one of the fish was rushing straight towards him, and its mouth was open, inside of which there were large teeth along the perimeter. It was ready to eat him right at that moment. The fish was getting closer and closer to him. He could already clearly see how sharp its teeth were. The guy was discouraged by this fact, after which pitch darkness came. After some time, the main character swam to the surface. He exhaled loudly. Looking around, he said that it was a great battle. There were several fish around him that showed no signs of life. Kai, looking at them from all sides, thought that this was his first fight underwater, so he had to work hard. The main character lifted his head up and thought about whether he really needed to go there now. It seemed to him that this would be the first test of this level. At the same time, he thought that it was quite high. The system voice informed him that the upper floor's tests had been completed. The Thunder Tiger King had been defeated, and a special rare condition had been obtained. Special benefits would be given. The voice even stuttered and made some mistakes from the shock. The protagonist asked him if everything was okay, why he was stumbling so much, to which the voice replied that he should be quiet, after which he asked why he was bothering him at all. Kai didn't react to him at all. He looked ahead and said that these fish also drop super rare chests. He said that he didn't know which one was which, but he would start with the smallest one. He immediately reached out to open it. When he opened it, he saw that inside was a book of magic for beginners. He immediately asked out loud that he really got a book. The protagonist thought about whether he could use magic with his weakest gift. He thought about how he would deal with it, and then decided to send the book to his storage. There was another closed chest in front of him. He went closer to open it and find out what was inside. In this chest, there was a sword. It was quite large. It was tied with a ribbon near the handle, and the handle itself was quite unusual. It turned out to be a lightning sword, Nihonto. It was from another world. Once it was used to kill the god of thunder. They say that with its sharpness you can cut lightning. The rank of this sword was legendary. Kai was shocked by the award he received. When the main character took it in his hand, he realized that this sword was adjusting to his hand. It was quite unusual. When the boy looked closer, he realized that the handle of this sword was like a wooden one. This surprised him a little. And after that, the main character put the sword in its sheath, and then a grin appeared on his face. He began to giggle. Kai said with a determined look that this was something new. He felt that he would become his partner. The protagonist thought about the fact that 76112 years had passed since the beginning of the game, after which he looked into the space in front of him and thought that everything had become clear to him. He saw a huge dragon in front of him, or rather its paw and head, and thought that this was where the dragon zone began. The protagonist thought with anticipation that now was the time to try out the sword. He immediately began to take it out of its sheath. At the moment, he was on the underground level 350. It was a fairly huge room, you couldn't even see the ceiling, and in front of him was a dragon with a strange body. The protagonist, looking at him, thought that compared to other dragons, this one was quite small. The monster itself raised its head up, as if it wasn't even looking at the guy. Kai thought that, however, these eyes, which at that moment had already begun to look at him, were somehow pressing heavily. The monster really didn't look like other dragons. So, the ape test, killing the golden dragon Fafnir, begins. The system voice addressed the latter and told him to show all his power. Kai wondered why the voice was on his opponent's side at all. The main character was upset by the fact that he was giving advice to the dragon, after which he suddenly pulled out his sword and said that his blood was boiling. Kai stood on the ground. He looked at the dragon, after which he turned to him and suggested that they fight. At that moment, the dragon struck, from which the main character flew a great distance. His clothes were disheveled, and there was a lot of smoke around. The main character was on one knee. He was pushing his sword into the ground to keep his balance. At the same time, his whole face and body were covered in blood. He laughed slightly. However, literally a moment later, the light laughter turned into hysterical laughter. He threw his head back and laughed loudly. After this, blood spurted from the main character's mouth. He suddenly fell silent, and then fell backwards with his whole body. He rolled his body down the stairs, and then stopped on the floor. There were traces of blood under him and where he fell. He lay there and thought that he had lost. It was a complete defeat. The protagonist thought that all his attacks were useless. Now defeating this dragon is his next goal. At the same time, he continued to laugh. After some time, he came to his senses. At the moment, he was on level number 1. He himself was in a source of water. He looked around and thought about how his blood had stopped. He still couldn't get used to how his flesh was being restored. After this, the main character laid his head on the edge of the source. He closed his eyes and exhaled. It was clear that he had come to terms with this situation. Kai thought that according to the conditions, the problem was in the ineffectiveness of the physical, and if he didn't fight with a sword, then how could he defeat the dragon other than physical means? At first the main character couldn't think of anything. He continued to lie with his eyes closed. It even seemed that he had fallen asleep. Then he suggested that perhaps he should use magic. Kai immediately opened his eyes, after which he opened his storage, and thought that he might find something in that magic book that he received as a reward. In his item box he used the search, and then entered the book of magic. It immediately gave him the necessary item. Then he turned to a search engine to find the answer to his questions. The book had a lot of stuff, but the only thing that made him happy was that it was for beginners. To use magic, you need to make a contract with the book of magic. You don't need to read it according to the contract. All the contents will appear in your memory. If he wants to read it, then the barrier will work, which in the worst case can lead to death. The protagonist thought that he was failing because he couldn't make a contract because of his gift, and he couldn't get magic the right way. He was nervous about this fact. Kai thought that he had nothing to do anyway. He would read as is, and he would keep the elixir with him. He had no time limit anyway. At that moment, the protagonist decided to drink the elixir to fully recover. He took quite large sips. After he drank it all, he wiped his mouth with his hand. Then he saw something appear in the air in front of him. He immediately turned his gaze there. He had acquired the skill of resistance to magic poisoning. He realized that these headaches and nausea were caused by magic poisoning. This skill made it easier to decipher magic books, and his rank was average. The protagonist thought that since he had such stability, he should feel a little better. He continued studying the book. Kai sat on the ground and thought about how 7673 years had passed since the game began. In addition to the book in his hands, he seemed to be surrounded by other books. The main character pressed his hand to his mouth and thought that he understood everything. Over these 60 years, he began to understand magic a little. This fact could not but please him. The boy realized that magic has normal and special properties. All but the basic and higher ones are classified as special. Mastering normal properties is not his gift, but innate talents are necessary to use magic. Someone who does not have talent cannot make a contract with the Book of Magic, so he could not master its contents. Without a contract, he will not be able to obtain normal properties. But there is also the concept of magic without properties, in which an object, a human body, is filled with magical power, and then this power is applied. The protagonist realized that in this case, he did not need innate talents to use magic, and it was available to him. He immediately began to smile from the realization of this thought. Kai loudly exclaimed that this was just great, now he could become stronger. These thoughts gave him strength to move on. 8167 years have passed since the beginning of the game. The main character thought that he still had very little time left before his resurrection. The guy asked for a minute of attention. He told about the unusual fact that he discovered when he was reading books on medicine. The human body is a cluster of a huge number of cells, each of which is a tissue that forms the necessary properties. It is possible to direct magical power to the nucleus of each cell separately. In theory, long-range attack methods should make it possible to use pseudostation magic. At this moment, magical currents seemed to be flowing upward from his hand. As it turned out, the time of calm was over. He was resurrected. The guy turned around and saw that there was a huge monster behind him. The guy smiled and said that, thanks for the monsters needing time to recharge. He apologized to him and said that the enemy had become another toy to beat. The dragon seemed to hear him. He charged up, and then released a huge stream of fire from his mouth. The protagonist at that moment put his hand in front of himself to hold back the attack. The guy with a calm face said that he wanted to use the skills of strengthening the body with unnatural magic, the power of Vajra. Thanks to the fact that he used this skill, it felt like the entire attack of the monster passed him by, and no damage was done to him. The protagonist looked at the hand in front of him and thought that the monster's breath no longer caused him any wounds. In this case, there was no need to use super regeneration. The boy thought that this was great news, so he had to move on. He pulled his sword out of its sheath. It turned out to be a fire sword. The main character held it in his hands and used the magic skill, enhanced weapon, magical weapon. He combined magic and weapons at a molecular level. Now that the sword is literally magic, it can strike. The protagonist told the monster that he felt a little sorry for him, but he would receive a blow from a blade of maximum power. It is unlikely that his opponent understood what he was saying. After that, the main character swung his sword and said that they were starting the battle. He was ready to attack. The main character struck this dragon with his sword. Thanks to this, he managed to cut off half of its head. The enemy was clearly defeated. After he struck, he lowered his sword and looked up at his opponent. At first he was surprised, and then he seemed sad. Kai thought that the monster's upper part had simply evaporated. Now Fafnir was no match for him either. Research magic. Divine Eye, magic that allows tracking all creatures and objects within a 500-mile radius. The protagonist saw that two people had appeared in the dungeon behind the wall, but they were clearly weaker than the previous one. Kai thought that they were not the ones to waste magic on, and then he decided that he would continue in a different way, after which 3 stones formed in his palm, one of which flew into the air. 11,065 years have passed since the beginning of the game. The main character continued to deal with enemies over and over again. He defeated his opponent once again, after which the system voice said that he had received the skill of perfect mastery of throwing Kairyu. The main character said that little by little, long-range attacks are perfect, and he received the title of Dragon Slayer. The guy said that he had done everything he could, now he had to trust in fate. He headed towards the exit of the level. His name is Heinemann. He is 15 years old, his age is suspended, his gift rank is the weakest in the world, Divine. Health 9000, Mana 8000, the title is Dragon Slayer, the last of the titles. He had a lot of skills. The main character was on par with the dragon that defeated him last time. The system voice said that he was incorrigible, Fafnir was immune to this, he definitely wouldn't lose. The protagonist asked if he really thought so, after which the voice said that then the 8th test of killing the golden dragon Fafnir begins again. Kai said that he couldn't stand those eyes, how long he had waited for this day to look into them again. At the same time, he had been waiting for this battle for a very long time. The protagonist's eyes seemed to be bloodshot. He said that he wanted to rip his throat open and see his fresh blood. The guy said that this was his love, that it lasted 3,500 years. He fell in love every day, over and over again, and almost drowned. The main character's appearance became very crazy. He took out his sword, and then swung it to strike him. As it turned out, the guy decided to destroy one of the barriers. Even the dragon himself did not expect such actions from him. The impact of his blow left a huge hole in the wall, as if part of the wall had been demolished by a bulldozer. However, at that very moment, the wall began to come back together into a single structure. The protagonist looked at this and began to laugh. Kai turned to the dragon and asked him to look, after which he said that he did this exclusively because of him. He dedicates this technique to him, after which he summoned the magical weapon. The guy asked him if he knew how his heart was beating. He had been waiting for this for 3,500 years. Every day he thought only about him, about his clear, like crystal in the twilight eyes and shining golden scales. He had longed for love too often and dreamed of their sweet meeting, how many times he thought he would go crazy, after which he repeatedly called the name of the dragon Fafnir. Kai asked him to show him how purest scarlet blood could flow from his body, and how a beautiful cry of despair could sound from his lips. He asked to see his dragon entrails, which would scatter across the floor, and he would burn in agony. The main character turned to the dragon and said that they needed to start. He was ready to fight him, and offered to do it fairly. However, unexpectedly for everyone, the dragon Fafnir bowed his head before the main character and said that he surrendered. The guy didn't seem to reflect what was happening at first. He froze in place, after which his madman mask fell off, and he asked what was going on. The system voice was also in shock. The protagonist started shouting that it was impossible, he hadn't used his sword yet, the dragon shouldn't joke like that. The voice agreed with him and said that Fafnir had to do something. Kai continued to talk about how his sword and the dragon's horns should clash in battle. The dragon began to cry and say that he did not want to which the guy replied that, whether he wanted it or not, it had to be done. The guy said that he had been learning magic for 3,500 years to fight him, but the dragon kept whining. At that moment, a system window appeared near him. The voice announced that the 8th trial of killing the golden dragon had been completed. Kai shouted at him not to give in either. This time, he had a special advantage when the enemy accepted defeat unscathed. The main character started to complain about what they were all doing, that it wasn't done that way, and then asked who he was. To which he was asked in response who he was. The system voice said that since he won, he would have a special advantage. Kai thought that he was in despair. A system window appeared in front of him, saying that Fafnir had stood up and was looking like he wanted to be friends. He was asked if he wanted the dragon to be his friend. While the main character was looking out this window, there was a dragon standing next to him, tears streaming from his eyes. When the guy turned to face him, he suddenly changed his face to a more serious one. Kai, having looked him over completely, asked out loud whether the dragon really wanted to become his friend. It didn't look like it. Then the protagonist thought that such a huge creature could not follow him. The dragon was trembling at that moment. Kai thought about the fact that this was a dungeon after all. Perhaps he was able to change shape to accompany him. The protagonist came to the conclusion that in any case, it seemed that this dragon could speak human. He is even reassured by the anxious female voice he hears, apparently already in trouble with his head. After all, he has spent 10,000 years alone. This could be luck. For this reason, the protagonist, when asked whether he wanted the dragon to be his friend, answered positively. At that moment, the latter evaporated, or rather, he began to change his appearance. He became small. However, that was not all. Kai saw the outline of the dragon through the smoke. It began to change, it became even smaller, after which it seemed to take on a human form. When the smoke finally cleared, A little girl stood in front of him, joyfully spreading her arms in different directions, and, calling him master, said that she was Fafnir, she was glad to meet him. The main character looked in shock at the smiling girl in front of him, and then asked about the dragon being somehow too small. The protagonist pulled gloves on his hands, threw a cloak over his body, and put a belt in his pants. He fully equipped himself for further progress. He looked at himself and concluded that it was not bad. These clothes were special privileges for overthrowing Fafnir. He was wearing a dragon cloak, dragon clothes, fabric made from parts of the legendary dragon, dragon shoes. The main character thought that there was nothing left of the clothes he was wearing, so he happily thanked her for such a gift, because she was so cool. Then someone called him, calling him master. It was Fafnir. She asked about what to do with this trash, whether it could be thrown away. She meant his old clothes, to which he replied that it was not such trash. Kai said that they were together now, so she should remember that there was an infinite storage of items, to which the girl replied that he would never get them out again, to which he replied that it was quite possible. The protagonist opened a system window in front of him, in which he began to mark as important, so as not to throw it away by mistake. Fafnir stood next to him and looked at his list. She also saw how happy the guy was. When Kai finished making the list, he turned to the girl and said that they needed to go back to the first level, they would look for something there, to which she replied that she was very interested. After that they returned to level 1. It was an above-ground level. There was nothing around, only one small one-story house. The protagonist told her that he made it from materials collected in the dungeon, and then asked her opinion about it, whether she agreed that it was very good. Fafnir stood there, looking at the house in shock, her eyes and mouth wide open. She only let out a gasp in response. Kai had said that they would be able to get a good meal here, so she shouldn't make that face. After that, the protagonist showed the girl the meat that fell from the thunder cow on level 290. He asked her opinion about it. She was shocked again. Then Fafnir's face twisted in disgust. She said that the meat had been there for so long that she was going to throw up. To which the guy replied that she only looked nice, but she was saying all sorts of nasty things. The main character said that this thing had fallen into his hands a long time ago. It was the flaming sword Flanberg. He took it out and showed it to the girl. The guy said that it had never been useful in battle, but he finally found a use for it. His entire blade began to burn. Kai also looked determined. He began to act. He swung the ball, then used the skill Karyu, the art of cooking, sword style, secret technique. A huge flame appeared near him. Fafnir next to him was again greatly surprised. After some time, there was a large piece of fried meat on the plate. He turned to the girl and said that the meat was now ready to eat. The main character served her the dish like a waiter and said that he wouldn't mind spending 10 years on such a crust. Fafnir exclaimed joyfully and said that it was cool, calling him the master. Saliva was already running from her mouth. She asked if she could eat it already. To which the guy replied that of course she could, after which he offered her a treat. He said that the only seasoning was salt, so he also paid attention. Levels 170, 80 are filled with water, and because of the different monsters living there, the quality of the water is different. It was from sea salt that he created the original salt. But Fafnir didn't seem to be listening to him at that time. She took a piece of meat and immediately put it in her mouth, after which she began to eat it greedily. The main character started asking her to slow down because she was no longer eating meat, but him. To which she replied with her mouth full that he was also delicious. Kai argued with her and said that he still had to cook, so she had to spit out his hand. There were huge mountains of meat around the girl. She held a piece in each of her hands, and the third was already in her mouth. She was happily chewing it. All 3 pieces were bitten by her. She said that it was delicious. To which the main character replied that he was glad to hear, after which he said that he knew that before eating you need to drink the elixir. The main character continued to spy on the girl while he himself ate meat. Her egg was happy, it was dirty with meat. The guy closed his eyes with pleasure and smiled slightly. Then an idea came to him. The guy handed the girl a fork, with a smile on his face. She stared at him in confusion. Fafnir carefully picked up the fork, then looked at Kai as he used it. Then she speared the meat onto the fork and ate it. He thought that there was nothing special about the food he had prepared, but for the first time in 10,000 years it tasted especially good. Something inside him had been lost for years, but suddenly, as if by itself, it had returned to its place. Such an inexplicable feeling. The obsession and anxiety that had ruled him until now had disappeared, like shadows in the rays of the setting sun. When facing the golden dragon, the protagonist was eager to shed blood, but now, seeing her dazzling shy smile, he no longer felt it. He said out loud that maybe it was one of the 4 privileges. The girl asked him what he meant, to which he replied that now they were both in a winning situation. She immediately asked him again what he was talking about. The main character and the girl were on the underground level 400. 13,000 years had passed since the beginning of the game. In front of them in the room was a huge monster. It had one eye, small horns on the sides of its face, it also had tusks, and a trunk. Fafnir said that the monster had a very long nose. To which he replied that he had read about it, it really was like an elephant. The enemy, hearing them, began to make strange sounds. It turns out that this monster could talk. He turned to the main character and said that he had reached such a level, so he praised him. The monster said that his name was Jirimakala, and he was undoubtedly the most evil demon. It was evident that this monster was quite arrogant. The main character turned to the girl and said that their enemy says that he is the most evil demon, after which he asked her opinion on this matter. She, without looking away, looked at the enemy. After that, she turned to the guy and started rummaging through her bag. He didn't understand what she was doing and then asked her if she really wanted a steak, to which she replied in the negative and explained that she would finish it later. She continued her search in her bag, her face very focused. After a few moments she took out the necessary item. It turned out to be a glove, which she put on her hand. She looked very menacing and bloodthirsty. She turned to the monster and said that she would lay him down. Kai stopped her immediately. The protagonist told her that she spoke threateningly, and that she reminded him of someone, to which Fafnir suggested that she might remind him of himself. The boy thought to himself that he would be like a parent, setting an example for her. He closed his eyes and told her to watch him carefully. The protagonist turned to the monster. He put his hand in front of him, in which was a stake strung on a skewer. He told his enemy that living like him is bad. After that, the guy, looking bored, told him to surrender right now, then he would spare him and not fight him. The protagonist continued to talk about surrendering to him, then turned to the girl and said that it should be something like this. At this time, the monster's only eye stared wide at him. The guy said that he didn't want to kill him. If he wasn't attacked, he would forgive everyone, from insects to dragons. At that time, the others were wondering who was talking like him. The monster was clearly very angry because of the main character's words. He started shouting loudly and inarticulately at him, but he couldn't find the words to say in this situation. The enemy leaned towards the main character and said that he was a very impudent and bad person, because the monster himself was a servant of Mara, the greatest ruler of this world. He is the first to whom Mara is favorable, and he is the one who, in all probability, will take the place of the creator among the gods in the future. Kai, a lesser god, shouldn't even be able to talk to him. How dare he demand anything from him, Mara's most powerful warrior? He's not even worthy of having his remains here. The main character started to get angry at his words. He threw up a skewer with pieces of steak strung on it. After that, the whole room was filled with bright light. Then the guy took out his sword, he closed his eyes and told the monster that he talks too much, thereby annoying him. The main character said that if the monster had refused right away, at least there would have been bones left. At that moment, Fafnir said that the guy was making more noise. Then he realized that he had failed a bit with his upbringing. The girl smiled broadly. A blush appeared on her cheeks. She turned to him and said that she had no doubts about him. The main character tried to justify himself and say that this is not the correct model of behavior, to which she interrupted him and asked if this is really how one should kill. He tried to argue with her. Kai thought that this girl was eager to kill anyone. At that moment, she said that she was hungry, to which he replied that he would cook her meat. He thought to himself that he was a very bad parent. After that, he took out the Book of Victories. It contained the souls of creatures defeated in divine trials. This allows them to be summoned in the future. To use it, a contract must be concluded. After that, creatures can be summoned and controlled. The protagonist realized that a top-tier item had fallen out of the chest. Was the monster he had defeated really a boss? At that moment, the system window appeared in front of him again. It stated that the soul of Jirimakala had been discovered, after which he was asked whether it should be catalogued. The main character and the girl looked at this message attentively. The guy thought hard about the offer. Fafnir at that moment wanted to click on the yes option, to which he asked her to wait. Kai told her in a serious tone not to click on everything she wanted, to which the girl said that she wanted to click on the buttons. Then he told her that she could do it. Then she clicked her finger. After that, the book in the protagonist's hands soared into the air. It began to glow. The guy just gasped at these actions. Fafnir was also shocked. After that, the book in front of them opened to a certain page. There was a photo of the killed monster, as well as full information about it and its characteristics. The main character said that everything was clear to him, that's how the creatures were brought in. Then he asked again if he could really summon them, after which he summed it up and said that this book was very interesting. The guy thought that he should try to go through the first level again and add everyone to the catalog. He suggested that the girl go back up because he wanted to check something, to which she replied that she was hungry. He realized that she needed to eat a lot. After some time, they returned to their level 1, above ground. The protagonist was sitting near the house and leafing through a book. The girl asked him what he was doing, to which he replied that he was going to summon Giramakalu, which they had caught. Fafnir repeated the monster's name aloud after him, then asked him if it was the one he had dealt with, the one with the huge nose. Then an idea occurred to her. She shouted that this was the one her master had killed, to which he called out to her and said that ladies do not say the word killed. She agreed with him. The guy wondered to himself whether she understood this or not. After this, the protagonist put his hand in front of him and said that he was calling him from the book on behalf of Heinemann. He called the name of the monster Giramakalu and asked him to free himself. A small disk of light appeared on the ground in front of them, which grew larger and larger with each passing moment, after which it finally turned into a huge ball of light. After some time, a dead monster appeared near them. This time, its appearance was not so sinister. Giramakalu first looked up, then he looked around, after which he turned his gaze to the protagonist and asked what was happening. Where he was, he did not remember such a place. Kai looked at him, then exclaimed in surprise, and said that he really appeared. Fafnir called him a long nose. The monster asked if he really was the newly made god. Giramakalu realized that he was his subordinate. The protagonist said that this was true. He had summoned his soul from the book. From now on, he served him. The monster said that he categorically refused, after which he asked what he had thought up. He closed his eyes, scratched his head, exhaled, and said that the monster still did not listen to him. After that, an unbreakable stick appeared in his hand. The protagonist's face became angry and bloodthirsty. He told Giramakalu that he would follow him, maybe if he killed him 10,000 more times, he would become more submissive. 51,000 years have passed since the beginning of the game. Giramakalu was lying on the floor outside his house, sleeping. He was making strange sounds in his sleep when he heard a loud cry demanding that he get up. His eye suddenly opened. The main character stood up, scratched his head and greeted him, to which the monster said that he understood everything, and also wished him good morning in response and put his hand to his forehead with the edge. At that moment, the guy shouted loudly at him that he was moving and speaking too slowly. The monster even shuddered with fear. The main character cursed and said that he had told him before that he should answer earlier. The monster knelt before him and asked him to forgive him for this oversight. Kai asked him what was wrong with him, to which Giramakalu replied that he was just a trash beetle crawling on the ground. Then the guy asked him if these beetles were better than him, to which he replied that he himself was the most hopeless beetle. At that moment, Fafnir came out onto the porch of the house. She yawned and stretched, after which she wished everyone a good morning. Then the monster put his hand to his forehead again, greeted her, and said that he was a garbage beetle. The main character yelled at him for telling him earlier that he shouldn't speak like that in front of a girl. The monster got really upset and asked him for forgiveness again. Fafnir finally came to her senses. She also put her hand to her forehead, wished everyone a good morning, after which she called the owner a trash beetle. The guy began to get angry that now she calls him that too. Then the girl said that she too was a trash bug. Kai shouted at Giramakalu that because of him they were all now bugs. The monster again asked them all for forgiveness. The main character said that as punishment he had to do 500,000 push-ups, after which he ordered him to start doing it. He immediately started to carry out the order. An hour passed after these events. Giramakalu was very tired, and beads of sweat were running down his body. He was trying to catch his breath. The monster said that he had finished fulfilling the order, to which the protagonist said that he praised him, after which he said that now they would go underground to fill the book further. Kai put his hand out in front of him and said that he wanted to try this thing he found yesterday. Giramakalu looked at him in surprise and asked if this was another item to increase strength, to which he was answered in the negative. The protagonist explained that these were the gloves of the divine seal, and that he could reduce his strength at will. The monster repeated the last words after him and asked if he had heard correctly. Kai explained that by reducing one's strength to the limit and almost dying, and then winning, one can increase one's characteristics. But, of course, by losing, one can die, after which he laughed along with the girl. The monster thought that he was in trouble in the head. The protagonist instructed Jiramikal to clean the house and prepare food before his return. He agreed. Kai also added that Fafnir eats a lot, so he is counting on him. He again agreed. 65,000 years have passed since the beginning of the game. The main character, along with his companion Fafnir, descended to the underground level 700. Kai said that there were no trees or rocks here, only a scarlet sky. He looked tired. He also said that this was an empty level, to which the girl repeated every word after him, also looking at the sky. Suddenly, the main character said that there was something in the distance. He thought that, actually, this is a zone where it is 200 degrees, one stay here will lead to death. Then he realized that there really is something there. He assumed that it is the boss. A large bird appeared before them, its body completely engulfed in flames. It said that new faces had appeared before it. Had someone really reached this level? At the same time, its gaze was serious. The protagonist thought that this was all bad, because the gloves had reduced his skills. Now he would not be able to assess the enemy's strength. This fact upset him. Previously, Kai could only learn the rank at one meeting. He wondered if the enemy could kill him. He doubted the unambiguous answer to the question. The higher the rank, the more imperceptible the intentions. The protagonist thought that since they were not visible, he was probably strong. After which he thought that maybe he should take off his gloves. But if the enemy turned out to be weak, he would waste the experience. After which the guy lowered his gaze to the girl, he thought, and then turned to her with a question about what she thought about this situation. To which Fafnir, without taking her eyes off, decided to express her opinion. The girl's mouth began to water, her eyes became hungry. She said that their opponent looked very appetizing. The protagonist understood what she was talking about. He turned to Fafnir and concluded that she liked chicken. To which she corrected him and said that it should be well done. To which Kai said that he was not talking about cooking, but about strength. The main character put his hands on his hips and asked the girl why she had to eat so much, since she was a lady. To which Fafnir, with a hint of annoyance in her voice, replied that it was so delicious. At that time, the bird was wondering what they were even talking about. The guy told her that no matter how she looked at their opponent, he was still a huge bird. The latter realized that the conversation was about her, so she was very surprised by this fact. She felt uncomfortable, she got angry, after which she angrily asked about who Kai had called a giant, to which he turned towards the voice. He was a little nervous and tried to explain that she had misunderstood everything. The protagonist explained that he simply expressed himself that way. He asked about the ingredient, and the bird asked him about what ingredient. This is generally unforgivable. What disrespect to the divine phoenix bird. The bird screamed that she would never forgive the guy. This was disrespectful to Kamishima Phoenix. She would never forgive him. The bird became angry, it became even more fiery and even rose into the air. At that moment, Fafnir took out her equipment. It was armored gloves. She gave the order for the dragon's iron armor to equip her. After which the girl turned to the main character and told him that she would sort it out. To which he replied that she just wanted to eat the phoenix. At this time, the voice asked if this had happened again, and then said that the test to overthrow the phoenix was beginning. He thought that he had not heard it for a long time. The bird said that it would not save them. Phoenix soared high into the sky, then launched fiery projectiles towards the protagonist and the girl. She told them to ask for forgiveness before his hellish flame. The fire was getting closer and closer to Fafnir. She put her gauntleted hand in front of her, which absorbed the fire. She then told Phoenix that she underestimated her armor, and then used the skill Earth and Heaven Hum. Then the girl's body flew high into the air. Her legs were pointing towards the sky, while her head was pointing towards her opponent. In an unknown language, she screamed something to Phoenix. After which she changed her position in the air, put her hand in front of her and used the Lion Strike skill. She looked very determined and fighting. The bird was instantly defeated with one blow. It fell to the ground, on its back. Fafnir put enough force into her blows. She screamed that Phoenix would be hit again and again. After a few moments, the girl managed to achieve her goal. With another blow, she cut the bird's body into 2 parts. Only after this could Fafnir calm down. She left the enemy alone, and she herself hovered in the sky, slowly approaching the surface of the earth. After a while, she landed on the ground with a loud sound. She held her gloved hand out in front of her so that it wouldn't hurt. There was a lot of smoke around her, and the floor surface itself was damaged by the contact. The main character clapped his hands and told her that it was wonderful. Today she was able to pronounce the names of all the techniques without mistakes. It was obvious that he was very happy and proud of her. There was a wide smile on his face. She told him that everything was ready. After which, Fafnir looked at him with eyes full of anticipation. Drooling began to drip from her mouth again. She turned to the owner and told him to prepare food. The protagonist closed his eyes, agreed with her words, and said that he would fry now. The necessary sword materialized in his hand. At that moment, he turned around when he saw the light behind him. He turned to Fafnir and told her that the phoenix had lit up on its own, to which the girl replied that it was clearly restoring, but she did not have time to finish her sentence, as Kai interrupted her and suggested that the bird was restoring its shape. The main character continued to speak incredulously about the phoenix regaining its form, to which the girl replied that she had killed it well, and the bird at that time really was turning into its usual self. Very quickly, literally after a couple of moments, Phoenix was completely restored. She said that she was sorry, but she could not be killed. She could be reborn, even if she was killed tens of millions of times, while her eyes were shining brightly. Fafnir said that since this had happened, then she would defeat the bird again. But the protagonist did not let her finish. An anticipatory smile appeared on his face, and he began to laugh. The guy said that, therefore, the phoenix is a bird that cannot be killed. He resigned himself to it, then said that it was the best thing he could think of, and then began to take his sword out of its sheath. The voice said that he was very annoyed by this approach. The main character said that his blood hadn't boiled like that for a long time, so now he'll check how unkillable this bird is. Kai said that first he would pull out all his insides alive, then he would cut it all up. He specified that he would cut it all up to the nail on his little finger. At the same time, he looked very bloodthirsty. Then he will crush and turn everything into tiny fragments. He wonders until what point Phoenix will breathe. At that moment, the voice sobered him up. He called him daddy and said that the girl was looking at him. However, something surprised the main character so much that he dropped his sword from his own height right onto his own foot, and he didn't pay any attention to it at all. The guy started to get nervous and ask about what had happened, how it had happened, while his voice stuttered badly and cold sweat ran down his face. The protagonist saw that the phoenix bird had turned into a pile of chopped pieces. He said that if it was chopped like that, it would really die. The voice said that it confirmed the bird's defeat, and then congratulated him on his victory. Fafnir stood next to him and drooled on the floor. Kai was still in shock. He asked if Phoenix was joking. She said she was reborn. The girl stood next to him and held the cutlery in her hands while he fried the phoenix for her. After which he handed her the finished dish. She was happy. The guy himself at that moment performed all the actions automatically. He continued to be in shock. After which a system window appeared in front of him, which indicated that the soul of the immortal phoenix bird had been discovered, and whether it should be entered into the catalog. To which he repeated the last words out loud. The main character was very angry about this situation. He cursed loudly out loud, after which he punched the wall so hard that he broke it. Kai asked the bird where she was immortal. All she could do was chatter. Did she really give up so easily? Could she have held out for at least 10 years, after which he added that she was a very bad bird? At this time, Fafnir stood nearby and ate the prepared food. She opened her eyes and mouth wide at the actions of the protagonist. The latter realized that he had behaved a little incorrectly. He immediately turned to her, put his hands in front of him, and with a sweet smile on his face, told her that such words should not be said, after which he asked her if she understood him. Kai said that he showed her how not to do it. It was intentional, especially for her. It was a lesson. Fafnir said that she saw right through him, that he got carried away. To which he began to argue and said that he just wanted to show her. The guy told her that she was a lady, and then said that saying such words would be a mistake. He wanted to know her opinion about it. He thought to himself that it was a mistake for him too. He asked her if she understood him. To which Fafnir smiled at him very sweetly and said that she understood everything, while calling him a very bad master. At first, they just looked at each other in silence for a couple of seconds before the main character realized what she was saying. He became very nervous. Kai stroked her head and told her that she was a good girl. He thought to himself that he was a bad parent. He asked her to go home, to which she agreed and said that they would go back to the garbage bug. The heroine sat with a very tired face, as if the fatigue hid a whole load of experiences and sleepless nights. Her gaze was empty, and her body seemed to be deprived of strength. She had been in this state for a very long time. Faf is a dragon, unusual and divine, a creature full of wisdom and magic. The heroine could not remember why she was in the dungeon where she lived for so long. Perhaps someone entrusted her with protection. And then he came, the master. His appearance was sudden and powerful, like a storm that brought changes to her life and surroundings. He immediately took the main place in her world, which had been closed and empty before. The master destroyed the wall behind her with just one swing of his sword, demonstrating incredible strength and skill. This gesture showed that he is not one to be afraid of obstacles and is ready to turn any situation around. However, the owner seemed very, very scary. His gaze was cold and penetrating, and his presence inspired awe. But it was then that the girl remembered the words that had once been said to her. She was told that one day someone would come who would set her free. And when that meeting happened, she would have to follow him, trust him, and move forward no matter what. Then she began to live with the owner. Over time, he stopped seeming so scary, and a friendship developed between them. He turned out to be kind, able to cook delicious food, which became a real consolation for her. For the first time in a long time, the heroine had an interlocutor, someone she could talk to, eat well, and feel safe with. She forgot how deep her loneliness was. She fell very much in love with her master, and they were always meant to be together. Their days were filled with activities together, seeking adventures, training, reading, relaxing and sleeping, all together as one family. Fafnir ate all the food and then even asked for more, showing her bright character and love for a good table. This became another small joyful moment in their life together. The heroine smiled and praised the owner for his culinary talents. She said that he was very good at cooking, and this made him slightly embarrassed. His face turned a little red, but his eyes sparkled. He gently ruffled her hair and replied that it was thanks to her that his cooking had improved significantly. He admitted that he hadn't paid much attention to it before, but now he was trying for her sake. At that moment, the sound of the door opening was heard, and the owner turned around in surprise. Someone entered the room, interrupting their peace and attention to each other. Several huge creatures came to them, animals with human features, who looked strong and impressive. They greeted them warmly, wishing them good morning. The guests announced that 2 more followers would join the squad from today. This was an important event that meant an expansion of their team and new opportunities. The hero greeted the newcomers with joy, expressing hope and confidence in their joint work. He counted on their skills and believed that together they could achieve great success. The followers wished the hero a safe journey, and he responded by saying that he would return in the evening and asked that dinner and a bath be prepared. This should have been a good end to a busy day. Faf looked at her master with her sweet eyes. They showed devotion and tenderness, like a small creature that had found its place next to a strong protector. The girl said that the monsters respected the owner, and when she was praised, she felt truly happy. At that moment, the owner turned around and gently called her to him, inviting her to share intimacy and support. The heroine began to cast a spell, concentrating and directing her energy. Her spell succeeded, and she accomplished the task at hand, an important step in strengthening her power. She was very happy that she managed to hit it in one shot again today. It meant that her skills were growing and her efforts were not in vain. Confidence filled her heart and she looked at the result of her work with pride. Approaching the owner, the heroine opened her mouth, and her eyes were wide open. They reflected surprise and slight confusion. She wanted to say something, but the words stuck in her throat because the owner's mood was completely different. He stood there looking very sad, with his head down and a tense expression on his face. His eyes seemed empty, which contrasted with his usually strong and confident appearance. The girl called him again, not understanding what was happening and what had caused such sadness in his soul. She tried to reach him, hoping to return to his previous mood. Suddenly, the owner began to laugh, quietly, awkwardly at first, and then louder and more sincerely. This laughter seemed to free him from the weight of grievances and sorrows, filling the room with light. He stroked her head again, and the heroine felt warmth and care. She was very happy about this moment, and thought that he sometimes looked very lonely, despite his strength and steadfastness. Recently, in the middle of the night, she woke up to go to the toilet. At that moment, something happened that filled her with fear, something inexplicable and alarming, something that made her heart beat faster. The owner was not there, and she felt the cold of loneliness. Tears ran down her cheeks, and she could not hold back the bitterness and helplessness that engulfed her. She searched for her master throughout the hut, crying and feeling lost. Her tears were deep and sincere, reflecting all the pain and fear she felt at that moment. Meanwhile, the owner stood outside, leaning on the railing, and peered into the distant horizon. His face was thoughtful, and his gaze was distant and full of sadness. Every now and then she saw his expression change. His sadness became even deeper, and it worried her, but she couldn't get close enough to ask him directly. He said aloud a name unknown to anyone, saying it with such warmth and pain, as if it was something very dear to him. The heroine was left simply to watch, realizing that behind this name was hidden a part of his soul. Every time the master said that name, his gaze became distant, as if he was going into distant, dark memories, inaccessible to others. That name seemed to attract his soul. Suddenly, the door creaked, interrupting his thoughts. He turned sharply, peering warily into the darkness to see the source of the sound. His heart began to beat faster. He felt that something had happened. The heroine stood at the door, all in tears, her shoulders shaking from sobbing. She was emotionally broken and looked lost. Her cry was so strong and sincere that it penetrated deep into the soul. He gently reached out to wipe away her tears, trying to understand the reason for her grief. Without panic, he said that tomorrow they would go to the dungeon, hinting at the upcoming test. These words sounded decisive. Later, lying on the bed, he hugged her tightly. She timidly asked if he would always be there, and he confidently answered yes. His embrace was warm and secure, bringing the comfort she sorely needed. She couldn't believe the words right away and asked again. The tears didn't stop. The fear of losing him was too great. Her doubts touched his heart, and he understood that he had to be her support and guarantee. He firmly said that he would never lie to her, because honesty was the foundation of their relationship. He wanted to convince her that she could trust him completely, because without trust, their relationship would lose its meaning and the strength that they valued so much. He asked her if she had ever lied to him. She answered honestly that she had not, and reminded him that he had always been truthful to her too. This confession strengthened their mutual trust and made their union even stronger. Smiling, the owner continued that he always told her only the truth. His words were full of warmth and hope. He wanted to support her and show that he was ready to be honest and open always, no matter what. They vowed to be together forever, in joy and sorrow. The heroine confessed her love, and this strengthened their bond. The promises gave them the strength to overcome any difficulties, and now they looked to the future as one. The owner promised to always stay close, which brought the heroine long-awaited peace and confidence. This promise became an anchor that kept her from fears and doubts, filling her heart with warmth and calm. Meanwhile, the divine test had come to an end, and the tension that had been building for years had finally begun to subside. The fate of the heroes had been decided, and their path had gained new clarity and direction. The three heroes stood at the shining divine circle, engulfed in mystical light, their gaze directed forward to the new trials and discoveries that awaited them beyond. Heinemann's memory, like a reassembled mosaic, returned to its previous state after the test was completed, filling his mind with clarity and strength. During his trip to the capital, the hero noticed a red-haired man who persistently chased him, so he accidentally wandered into the dungeon of the divine test, finding himself on the threshold of the unknown. To get out of the dungeon, he had to catch up with his pursuer. Luckily, inside he had gained the ability to stop time outside, which gave him an advantage in the fight. While he was exterminating tens of millions of monsters and toiling in the dungeon, something unexpected was happening around him. The very nature of the test and his perception was changing. Many years passed, but Kai did not age a single day. His body remained young, despite his long stay in this strange and mysterious place. Fafnir noticed that the master was acting strangely, and Astaroth agreed with her. She asked the hero if he wanted to return to the old world. Now he realized that these two were the bosses of this upbringing. The hero looked at them with slightly crazy eyes. In his gaze one could read a mixture of fatigue, misunderstanding, and internal conflict, reflecting a difficult test. The girl raised a white flag in front of him, a symbol of reconciliation and grief. Her face expressed sadness, loss of hope, and an inner pain that was hard to hide. Fafnir quietly warned that someone had arrived. A new, unexpected guest brought tension into the atmosphere, and everyone froze in anticipation. The character said that the hero had nowhere to run. This man appeared out of nowhere, and his presence meant a new threat or challenge that must be confronted. Kai immediately realized that the red-haired man who had been stalking him for a long time was standing in front of him. His appearance caused mixed feelings in the hero's soul, from wariness to slight surprise. He remembered that in his memories this man was very strong and dangerous. But now he looked completely different, weak and tired, which confused Kai and made him think about the reasons. The young man, sticking out his tongue insolently, asked the hero if he had come with friends. His impudence was evident in his tone and look, clearly trying to irritate or frighten him. He called the hero's allies funny girls, which greatly offended and angered those who were standing nearby. Their faces expressed displeasure and a desire to fight back against the impudent man. Ready for battle, the allies were about to attack, but the hero stopped them with the words that he would deal with the red-haired man himself. This softened the situation and showed his self-confidence. The hero said he wanted to ask the stranger some questions. He was sure his divine seal gloves would help. The stranger asked the hero if he realized the situation he was in now. The heroes began to argue, trying to prove their case. The stranger said with disdain that it was not even worth wasting a sword on Kai. He was too weak for a fight. The tension increased, the words sounded like a challenge about to flare up. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing pain shot through the stranger's arm, causing him to cry out in surprise. He had not expected such a turn of events, and his cry echoed tensely throughout the area. This instant defeat stunned everyone. His scream echoed through the forest, alarming and full of fear. Waves of horror and pain reverberated in his voice, causing those around him to become wary. It was as if the sound had awakened something ancient in these lands. Suddenly, 3 enraged wolves rushed at the hero, their teeth gleaming in the light, and their eyes burning with bloodlust. They rushed swiftly, ready to tear the enemy apart in an instant. This was a serious attack. Kai instantly applied true swordsmanship, demonstrating dexterity and precision. His movements were swift and unerring, like a dance, each swing of the sword bringing death to the enemy. His opponent, amazed by Kai's skill, called him a monster, warning others not to come near. The nickname reflected the fear and respect mixed in the hero. Despite the warnings, the hero continued to fight, using the deadly line, a move that could instantly eliminate an opponent. This move was precise and deadly, leaving no chance for the enemy. The deathline instantly destroyed the enemy, and the allies were genuinely happy about the victory. Their joy and pride for Kai filled the room with warmth and support. This moment became a symbol of unity and mutual respect. The red-haired man wore the sign of the Imperial Squad, a symbol of high status and belonging to an influential group. This sign immediately made him a dangerous enemy, causing respect and fear in everyone who saw him. The case involves a factionist aristocrat from the Amelia Empire who plans to kidnap the first princess, Rosemary Amelia. This insidious plan threatens peace and stability. To carry out the plan, the Emperor's sword Signal Gastrea and the summoner Ens were sent. They are the best of the best, sent to carry out a secret mission. The hero thought about Princess Rose, feeling a deep responsibility for her safety. It seemed to him that the fate of the kingdom depended on his protection, and he was ready to risk everything for her sake. His heart was filled with determination. His ally turned to him with a question, noticing a shadow of anxiety on the hero's face. She asked if he was thinking about something bad, trying to support and understand his inner experiences. Her concern was sincere and warm. The hero replied that he wanted to fight with the Emperor's sword to prove his strength and protect his family. His words were full of determination and courage, reflecting his inner struggle and desire for justice. The boys quickly came up with a plan. They needed to act quickly and distract the Imperial troops. They understood that time was against them and every second counted. The solution required courage and tactical thinking. The hero gave the grasshoppers the task of killing their opponents without hesitation. He knew that ruthlessness was the key to success in this war. The team had to act quickly and accurately, leaving the enemy no chance. The ally thought that Kai had tamed the monsters from the dungeon, which was an unexpected move. Such an ally could change the course of the battle, bringing an advantage and power that was difficult to predict. He summoned the grasshoppers. There were so many of them that it seemed as if darkness itself had descended on the battlefield. These creatures were ready to carry out the order and destroy all enemies without mercy. Kai gave the grasshoppers a sharp command to fly forward and crush their opponents. Soaring into the air, these fast and agile creatures crashed down on their enemies with a roar, leaving them no chance to resist. They moved with speed and purpose, ready for an attack that could not be stopped. Their fury was frightening and deadly. The grasshoppers began to gnaw at the people, tearing apart the defenses of their opponents. They were merciless in their attack, dealing crushing blows and frightening the enemies with their numbers and fury. They also attacked angry dogs, biting people on the hands. Their aggression was boundless, and no one could resist these small but dangerous creatures. In Princess Rose's tent, they noticed a noise and bustle. Something was happening outside the walls, and the anxiety was growing. People began to gather, preparing for a possible threat. At that moment, another girl screamed, warning that it was an enemy attack and calling for preparations for defense. An anxious time was coming, and everyone had to be ready for battle. The heroine asked Anna who their enemy was. Anna replied that they were people from the Empire, and there was a traitor among them, which increased the danger and mistrust within the camp. Determined to leave as quickly as possible, they left the tent and saw a large crowd of people preparing to storm. This was a serious challenge that required decisive action. Lord Frankton stood out from the crowd, twirling his mustache with a smug smile. His presence exuded confidence and authority, and his gaze was full of hidden intentions. Anna began to protect the princess, becoming her shield and support. She was ready to rush into battle to save her queen from the impending threat. The hero said that if the princess marries the third prince of the empire and he takes the throne, the homeland will be safe. It was a pragmatic decision aimed at saving the kingdom. Lord Frankton replied that he would do everything possible for the good of the kingdom and for the future, although his words were doubted by those around him. The princess screamed at the lord, accusing him of betrayal, unwilling to accept a plan that went against her beliefs and honor. At this point, a mysterious man appeared who declared that he would not allow these plans to be carried out, introducing new intrigue and escalating the conflict. The girls saw Arnold, the leading knight, confidently approaching their side. His serious look and slender posture inspired respect. He was an important protection for the princess in this dangerous moment. The man with the cigarette suddenly rushed at the lord, swinging his sword furiously. His determination and courage were astounding, and the lord at that moment began to scream loudly, trying to defend himself and warn his allies about the attack. However, at the most critical moment, the attack was interrupted by another young man who stood in the way of the sword. His determined and cold gaze did not allow Arnold to bring the blow to its target, creating unexpected tension. The young man looked at the hero with confidence, not allowing the lord to be killed. He was calm but firm in his intentions, making it clear that he would not back down or let the fight end as easily as the hero wanted. The young man was happy to meet a worthy opponent and introduced himself as Zignal Gastrea. His confidence and calmness spoke of considerable experience and strength, which immediately made everyone pay close attention to what was happening. The character asked if this young man was really the current sword of the empire, trying to understand who exactly he was dealing with. This was an important moment, because the further tactics of the battle and the outcome of the event depended on it. The heroes clashed in a sword fight, their movements swift and precise. Their skill and determination created a tense atmosphere where every blow could be decisive and change the course of the battle in either direction. The girls watched the battle, wondering if these young men were equal in strength and skill. Their gazes were full of anxiety and admiration, because the fight was bright and intense, reflecting a deep confrontation. At that moment, a snake appeared out of nowhere, opening its mouth and preparing to deliver a fatal bite. Its appearance made everyone freeze, because the sudden threat could change the entire course of the battle. The snake lunged at Arnold, trying to bite him on the neck. But the knight noticed the attack in time, and met the snake with a terrible, terrifying look that stopped the predator and caused fear in everyone present. He asked mockingly if he could really be scared by such methods. His gaze was so strong and terrifying that the opponents seemed to freeze in surprise and fear, not expecting such a reaction. The opponent shouted at Enzu, his ally, not to interfere in the battle. He hoped that he could handle it himself and did not need help, seeking to strengthen his position in the battle. He replied that now was not the time for such tricks and interventions, urging them to stick to strategy and focus on the main task. His calm helped maintain order and discipline in the chaos of battle. The hero said that fulfilling the emperor's order was his priority, and he would not back down at anything. This statement emphasized his determination and willingness to go all the way for his mission. The princess watched in horror, her heart constricted with fear. She remembered how the hero was now fighting alone against the enemies, fighting for their common safety, and she prayed for his salvation. The hero was a little tired, but still had a cigarette in his mouth, as if it gave him strength and confidence. His breathing was even, and his gaze was firm, despite his fatigue. He continued to stand guard. At this point, Anna was watching the events closely, lost in her thoughts. She was considering a plan of action and trying to find the best way to protect the princess and her allies. Anna knew she needed to distract the enemy so everyone could escape into the forest. Her plan was clear and urgent. She knew the princess's safety was the most important thing, and she acted decisively, leaving no room for doubt. Right now, the princess's safety was their top priority, and everything else faded into the background. The heroes understood that any mistake could cost her life, as well as the entire kingdom. Suddenly, a knight appeared from behind and grabbed Anna by the neck, declaring that she would not run away. His grip was strong and threatening, and the girl felt the danger that hung over her instantly. The princess was also seized by other knights, not giving her a chance to escape. She struggled, but the forces were unequal, and the situation became increasingly critical. Capture seemed inevitable. At that moment, Enz turned around and coldly told the heroes to do whatever they wanted with the girls. His words were cruel and merciless, as if he had turned his back on human morality in order to complete the mission. The girls tried to break free from their grip, screaming and struggling, but their efforts were in vain. The knights held them tightly, not allowing them a single step to the side, and fear filled their hearts. At this point, the heroines wondered how the knights could betray their country and hurt their people. Their internal conflict strengthened their desire to fight not only physically, but also morally against betrayal. The princess screamed for help, her voice breaking through the silence filled with tension and fear. She desperately wanted to save her friends and herself, but it seemed like no one could hear her cries. Suddenly, something strange happened. Something hit the hero who was holding Anna on the neck, and his head was instantly cut off. This unexpected event caused shock and changed the course of events in an instant. The same thing happened to the knight holding the princess. Suddenly someone appeared from behind and cut off his head. It was Kai, decisive and fast, the protector. The princess saw with horror and surprise that her offender had just been killed. Her eyes widened in shock and her heart began to beat faster. The rescue was so unexpected that she did not immediately believe what was happening. The knight's body began to fall to the ground, slowly swinging in the air, and the princess stood motionless, stunned by what had happened. Her mind could not immediately comprehend that the danger had passed thanks to Kai's intervention. She realized that it was Kai who was able to protect her at such a critical moment. It changed her perception of him forever. Everyone who reaches the age of 13 receives a divine blessing, a gift that changes destiny. It determines each person's strength and path, opening up opportunities for great things. Someone is given a holy sword, a weapon of light and justice. This gift gives the owner the power to protect the weak and fight for the truth. The owners of such a sword become heroes and defenders of their people. Others receive the King of Spears, a symbol of power and might. It is a weapon with an ancient history that grants incredible strength and strategic advantage in battle. However, the gift that Kai received was the weakest and lowest in history. It was considered useless and unremarkable. This caused contempt among those around him, and Kai himself doubted his powers for a long time. The girl who was watching Kai opened her mouth in surprise. She didn't expect to see anything more than a weak boy in him. In front of her stood a man who had changed beyond recognition, and this caused her mixed feelings. In her eyes, Kai was very weak, but now he looked completely different. His confidence and strength radiated from every movement, and it couldn't help but surprise he became someone who could not be neglected. He extended his hand to her and quietly asked if she could stand up. The gesture was full of care and support, showing that he was ready to help and protect her in any situation. People, seeing Kai, shouted that he was a monster and hurried to run away. His mysterious power and unusualness caused both fear and respect, forcing many to turn away from him and avoid meeting him. At that moment, Fath appeared, fiercely fighting the enemies. Her fighting spirit and courage inspired her allies and struck fear into the hearts of her enemies, changing the course of the battle. The team captured the Lord and welcomed the princess, showing support and unity. It was a moment of victory that gave hope and confidence in a bright future. Commander Kai looked at his men with satisfaction. His calm confidence inspired everyone around him, and the princess was in shock, unable to believe what was happening. It changed her perception of the world and people. The princess could not believe what she saw. Everything that was happening seemed incredible and almost fantastic to her, and she tried to comprehend what had happened, realizing the importance of the moment. She had always heard about Kai from her friend Rina, who described him as a weak boy. These stories had long ago shaped her opinion, which was now changing dramatically. She described Kai as a simple-minded and weak boy, incapable of great deeds. However, what was happening now destroyed all her previous ideas and made her think about the true strength of a person. The princess still couldn't believe her eyes. She was in complete shock from what she saw. Everything that was happening seemed incredible and contrary to reality. Her heart was pounding. She began to scream loudly, calling for help from Arnold and Anna. Her voice was desperate and shrill, trying to wake up her allies and draw their attention to what was happening. She was worried and scared. They were all surrounded by healing slimes that Kai had conjured. These magical creatures healed wounds and restored strength, giving hope for salvation and victory. Strength began to return to the exhausted fighters. Arnold was shocked by how quickly his wounds healed thanks to the slimes. He couldn't believe such a miracle, and began to appreciate the magical support much more. His fighting spirit was greatly strengthened. Anna also felt better after using the slimes. The pain subsided, and she felt a surge of strength and energy. This gave her new hope and the desire to continue the fight for the princess and the kingdom. The girls were very happy about such rescue and help, and the hero also felt joy from being able to help his friends and allies in a difficult moment. This strengthened their unity and faith in success. The man asked Kai if he could actually summon these slimes, marveling at such a powerful ability and its effectiveness in combat. His interest was genuine and respectful. He replied that the slimes were his friends and allies. He turned to the Lord and sarcastically asked what kind of pathetic spectacle he was making here, showing his contempt and confidence. The two allies of the Lord thought that holding one girl was not difficult, and decided that they should do everything themselves without relying on chance. These thoughts reflected their arrogance and ignorance of the threat. The boys were shocked to see that the Imperial soldiers had returned. This increased the danger and made them prepare for a new, more serious battle. The time of testing was coming. At that moment, Kai noticed the alien swordsman, a mysterious and dangerous opponent who could change the course of the battle with his appearance. His eyes narrowed, preparing for a new threat. The hero offered to fight Kai, starting a tense confrontation that could decide the outcome of the entire battle. The tension grew, and everyone expected a decisive battle. Kai didn't understand why the man was so excited and took the meeting so seriously. His inner calm contrasted with his opponent's agitation. He ordered Enzu not to interfere and expressed a strong desire to kill the hero himself. His determination and rage were obvious, and he was not going to back down. The young man explained that everything that was happening was just disappointment to him, as if this whole conflict was not worth his efforts and emotions. This added drama to their confrontation. Arnold shouted loudly, warning that it was dangerous for the princess to stick her head out. He immediately began to block her with his body, becoming a protective shield from possible attacks. The opponent didn't understand what Kai was doing at that moment. The young man suddenly reached for the stick lying on the ground, preparing to use it in a fight or to defend himself. His gaze was intense, and his actions were quick. Kai thought that his opponent was too immature and unworthy to point his sword at. He felt superior and stronger, judging his opponent as weak and unworthy of serious attention. This disdain made the hero very angry. He reacted sharply to this attitude. His anger flared up furiously, forcing him to act decisively and assertively. Now he was ready to prove his strength and respond with dignity. He instantly pounced on Kai with his sword, attacking with great speed and force. The blow was sharp and swift, giving no time to prepare and forcing the enemy to retreat or repel the attack. Kai easily shrugged off the blow, showing his skill and confidence in the fight. His movements were precise and fast, deflecting the attacks with minimal effort. He continued to fend off the fast-flying blows, not giving his opponent a chance to break through his defense. His tenacity and agility were at their best, causing admiration among the spectators. Suddenly, the heroes split into different directions, pushing each other away. This separation created a new dynamic in the fight, giving everyone a chance to rethink their strategy and prepare for the next exchange of blows. The girls watched the battle in amazement, amazed that one of the heroes was fighting not with a sword, but with a stick. It seemed unusual and intriguing, adding mystery and tension. The opponent's attacks did not touch Kai at all. He was invulnerable to these blows. His calmness and confidence grew, surprising everyone present even more. Arnold watched with his mouth open, holding a cigarette in his mouth. His expression spoke of deep surprise and admiration for the young fighter's skill. He thought that the boy's dominant hand was too excellent. Such technique and control over the weapon could be the result of many years of training and experience. There was a gap of tens of thousands of years of training between the heroes. Such a gap in skills made the fight extremely unequal and spoke of a large difference in the level of skill. The princess thought that the boy's true gift was not strength but hard training and hard work. He proved that even a weak gift can be turned into a powerful weapon with persistence and experience. The hero fighting Kai realized that he was losing. His confidence began to crumble, and fear began to take hold of him, realizing that the enemy was much stronger and more skilled than he seemed. Kai used his stick to knock the sword out of his opponent's hands with skill and speed. This unexpected move confused the enemy and deprived him of his main weapon in the fight, changing the course of the battle. The opponent was shocked by the young man's antics. He was confused and could not believe that he had been beaten so easily, which had a severe impact on his self-confidence. He opened his mouth and sweated, not expecting to lose. His pride was deeply hurt and he felt humiliated in front of everyone watching the fight. The hero declared that out of respect for the Emperor's sword, he would spare Kai and not deliver the fatal blow. It was a gesture of honor and pride, despite the defeat. Ians watched the events unfold and sighed, realizing that the situation was getting out of control. He was worried about the future and the possible consequences of the battle. The hero screamed from a feeling of humiliation and anger, not wanting to accept defeat and his weakness in front of his opponent. The antagonist began to think that this man had to be killed, and Kai too, because both had become too dangerous, especially the young man with his magic. He began to cast spells, preparing for the final attack. He summoned a very stylish fire spirit, intending to burn everything around him and destroy his enemies. The flames flared up, filling the air with heat and danger. The hero stood there, horrified and confused, unable to understand what exactly Ens was doing and how strong his magic was. Bright flames engulfed everything around, turning the space into a fiery hell. Kai confidently said that this pathetic flame was no match for him. He summoned the spirits to put the fire spirit in its place and stop the destruction. And then the real battle began, a clash of elements and forces, where the fate of each hero and the entire kingdom was decided. The spirit summoned by Kai confidently said that it would fulfill any wish of its master. Its voice was deep and commanding, as if it had already seen the outcome of events. No one doubted that the spirit was ready to carry out the order, helping Kai. Kai effortlessly grabbed the spirit with one hand, showing amazing strength and control over magic. His movements were fast and precise, reflecting experience and confidence. This simple gesture impressed everyone. Holding the book in his hand, he thought. He concentrated on flipping through the pages, as if he was looking for the necessary information or a spell. The book was a source of knowledge that helped him control magic. Ens noticed Kai's concentration, and said that if he reached the Empire, he would be rich, he would be rich and respected. This was an attempt at temptation, promising fame, wealth, and power. In response to the threat, the hero instantly cut his opponent in half. His strike was fast and precise, leaving no chance for the enemy. This gesture showed that Kai will not tolerate betrayal and will not listen to those who use people. The character said with disdain that there was no point in listening to someone who used his people as bait. He rejected flattery and manipulation, valuing honesty and fairness. His words showed firmness of character. Kai addressed his allies and said that there was no need for a rebellion, they needed to move on. He urged them to remain calm and focused, to avoid unnecessary conflicts. His leadership inspired the team. The Lord stopped them and said that the hero must come under the command of the future king. It was an offer of alliance and cooperation, a hope for support and strength, united for the sake of the future kingdom. The hero coldly replied that he was not interested in going under the king's command. He rejected the offer, showing his independence and determination. His own goals and convictions were important to him, not political games. Anna, watching the events, heard that the royal family were pests. Her view changed, distrust and anger appeared. She realized that power is often used to suppress and destroy. She shouted loudly at the hero, demanding that he watch his words. Ridiculing the Karayev family was not a forgivable mistake. Her voice was firm and menacing, warning that such behavior would be severely punished. No one dared to challenge her position, because family is the foundation of power. The princess made her presence known, stopping the argument. Her decisive voice rang out through the room, silencing everyone around her. She demanded respect for the family, and demanded an end to the insults. She said that everything was fine. For the first time she had met a like-minded person. This gave her hope and calm. Finally, there was a person who shared her views and dreams. Her heart was filled with warmth. The princess confessed that she dreamed of building a better state with him. The hero asked if she was ready to give up her title for this. She replied that she was not afraid of change and was ready to give up her duties. She declared Kai her royal guard, trusting him with her protection. This decision caused surprise. No one expected such trust. But the princess believed that Kai was the best choice, because he was honest and strong. Everyone was shocked by her decision, because no one in the court deserved to be trusted. The princess explained that there were no real protectors among the courtiers, and the hero was an exception. It was a bold move that showed her determination. She said that Kai would be her guard, and if he agreed, he must kiss her hand. This gesture symbolized loyalty and a new alliance. It signified respect for authority and acceptance of the responsibility to protect the princess. They looked at each other. She was smiling, he was serious. Hope shone in her eyes, and Kai's gaze expressed determination and readiness. A special understanding arose between them, which promised a strong union. Kai took her hand in his, showing his agreement and respect. This simple but meaningful gesture confirmed his determination. He was ready to serve and protect, no matter what. He said that until she found a real guard he would play along. His voice was firm, a little choppy with emotion. He promised to be there, to protect and support her until she could find a protector. Kai added that he was ready to play this role, surprising the princess. She did not expect such determination and devotion. Her heart was filled with gratitude and faith in the best. Now she had a real protector and friend. They shook hands, and the princess said she was counting on him. This gesture was the beginning of a new alliance, filled with hope and determination. Promises were made, and now their path was bound together by a common goal. The princess was happy. The girls began to discuss plans and hopes. Their conversations were filled with dreams of changes and improvements. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation of a bright future. The princess sincerely believed Arnold's letter because she knew his reliability and honesty. His words gave her confidence that the situation was under control. This message was a support for her in difficult times. Her hand continued to write quickly on the paper, creating an important letter for Rina, her close friend. Each word was filled with care and anxiety because she wanted to warn her about the impending danger and ask for help. The letter described in detail Lord Frankton's attack, its brutality and suddenness. The princess wanted Rina to be prepared and cautious, knowing about the enemy. This message brings anxiety, but also hope for salvation and support. The princess wrote with admiration about how her childhood friend Kai had dealt with all the imperial soldiers. This act seemed amazing and inspiring. She was proud of it. They sat in a cafe with the young man, and the princess thought that he was a very reliable person. His calmness and determination inspired confidence, and his actions showed true courage. The city was relatively quiet, and everyone lived their own lives. The heroes stopped at an inn where they rested after a long day. Here they could recuperate and gain energy for the upcoming trials. They had a conversation, finding out that they would have to stay here until the situation calmed down. The temporary calm gave them the opportunity to rest and think about their future plans, but the feeling of anxiety still did not leave them because the unknown awaited them ahead. The princess sincerely said that she was very happy that Kai agreed to become a royal guard. For her, it was a sign of hope and support, an important support in difficult times, which inspired confidence. Kai wondered if he had agreed because he felt a responsibility to protect Rose, since she was Rina's friend. The thought gave him extra courage and meaning to his actions. The princess asked the hero if he would like Rina to take a dangerous position. He replied that he wanted to protect her because she was his friend and he did not want her to be in danger. He started to leave, saying that it was better this way than if the heroine hid something from him. Frankness and honesty were more important to him than secrets that could only make the situation worse. He reiterated that he prefers the truth to any lie. Secrets can destroy trust, and he values openness and sincerity in relationships, especially in difficult situations. Then the princess asked if she could ask him for one more thing, and winked at him. This small gesture brought a playful note and showed that there was mutual understanding and trust between them. At this time, the hero's allies slept peacefully together in one bed, enjoying a rare peace after intense trials. Their rest was necessary to restore strength and prepare for further events. He abruptly opened the door and shouted loudly for them to wake up. His unexpected appearance startled the girls, and they shuddered in surprise. Such an awakening was abrupt, but necessary. He announced that they were going to explore the city and do some shopping. The plan was simple but important, to scout out the situation and collect the necessary things for future tests. One of the allies' eyes widened and she was shocked. She had just woken up and did not expect such a cheerful start. Her surprise and slight bewilderment reflected the suddenness of the situation. Faf, rubbing her eyes, asked doubtfully if Astaroth was really a girl. Her question reflected surprise. Her appearance could be embarrassing, and she wanted to make sure of it since she knew how important it was. The sweet girl came out of the room and wished Rose good morning, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Her gentle voice filled the room with warmth and comfort, creating an atmosphere of care and friendship among the characters. The princess smiled back and wished the girl a good kitchen too. While brushing her hair, she asked if Ta could help Kai search the city for ingredients for a cake, a small but important gesture of thoughtfulness and planning. The girl was delighted to hear the word cake and was happy to hear that Ta could cook. This added fun and anticipation, creating a positive mood and strengthening mutual understanding in the group. Kai turned to Nemia and confidently told him that he was entrusting him with the protection of the princess. He trusted Nemia and was confident that he would keep her safe. This decision was an important step to focus on. The heroes left the house and went to explore the city. They wanted to get to know the situation, to understand who lives here and how. The walk promised to be useful for collecting information and preparing for the upcoming events. The princess and Anna were talking about whether everything would be alright. Their conversation was filled with concern and anxiety. They hoped that everything would work out well and the danger would pass them by. Papra is a city located in the middle of a large forest. Hunters from all over the world gather here, and trade flourishes. This place lives its own special life, filled with the noise of markets and the smells of nature. This location was a free place where beast-like creatures gathered. Here they felt free and safe. The atmosphere of the city was distinguished by friendliness and diversity. Kai's mother, being a hunter, often said that she dreamed of coming to this city. She spoke about Papra with special warmth, describing it as a place of power and comfort where one always wanted to return. The hero remembered these moments with warmth and a smile. His heart was filled with light when he thought about his mother and her dreams. These memories gave him strength and inspiration on the way, despite all the difficulties and trials. Suddenly, the characters heard a noise from the street and decided to see what was going on. The voices and fuss attracted their attention, forcing them to come closer to understand the essence of the situation. They saw the presentation of the best fruit grown this year. It was put on display for everyone to see, praised for its taste and quality. This event aroused interest and attracted many spectators. A wealthy man was asked to taste the fruit to confirm its quality. His opinion was important to the sellers and the crowd, as he was known for his taste and status. The man silently agreed and prepared to try the fruit. His calm demeanor and status clearly showed that he could afford to be demanding and exacting. The boys noticed a mage standing behind the man, who quietly used magic to make the fruit rot. The trick was sneaky and stealthy, designed to create a bad impression. The man tasted the fruit, saw that it was rotten, and immediately began shouting at the seller. His anger was obvious, and he accused the seller of cheating and counterfeiting the goods. He was filled with rage. His voice was loud and menacing. He threatened the seller and everyone around him, causing tension and fear among those present. The man threatened to set the entire city on the merchants, using his influence and wealth to punish them for this deception. His words made many worry about the fate of the merchant. The seller insistently declared that he was not to blame, defending his honor and goods. The heroes, observing this situation, claimed that it was not he who was to blame, but someone else who used magic and intrigue. I thought that Frank Tong and the aristocrats were hopeless. His indifference and pride saddened her to the depths of her soul. It hurt her to see the government lose its human face, sinking into intrigue and cruelty. Astaroth declared that it was necessary to immediately stop what was happening. She could not stand aside, seeing injustice and threats. Her determination was born inside, and she was ready to act to protect the honest. The crowd called out to the count who was tasting the fruit, declaring that this would not go on. The voices were loud and insistent, trying to draw attention to the injustice and the violation of the rules, demanding justice. Everyone recognized the two, but Kai stood there confused, not understanding who they were or why their reaction was so important. His gaze was focused, trying to figure out what was happening and understand their true motives. It turned out that it was the guild leader Sharp Swordsider and his deputy Caber. Their presence inspired respect and fear at the same time, because they were people with power and authority in this city and beyond. The man, a count, said that this was the most famous guild of the Four Saints. He was unhappy with their presence here and that they were interfering in his affairs, feeling that it was a threat to his power and plans. He frowned and became angry, showing irritation and displeasure. His face expressed anger and impatience, which aggravated the tension between the parties. The young man said that His Highness was a kind man and would not wish suffering on ordinary people. This comment was an attempt to soften the conflict and show that the conflict could be resolved peacefully. The guild reminded the man that they were from a powerful organization and urged him to calm down. Their words sounded like a warning, demonstrating the strength and power that could change the course of events. The count said that he could give in to this guild and asked for normal fruit next time. This was an admission of defeat and an attempt to save face in front of the public. The crowd stood and watched, full of interest and tension. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next and who would emerge victorious in this intrigue. The boys thought it was a farce, and that all these people were actually accomplices, including the count. But what exactly they were planning remained a mystery, and this caused anxiety and suspicion. Suddenly, the dog Fen ran off somewhere, howling and looking around warily. His behavior immediately attracted the attention of the heroes, who hurried to find out the reason for such alarm, sensing that something important was happening nearby. The heroes saw that many people were bullying the beast-like youth. He stood alone against the crowd, which was clearly not happy with his presence. The situation seemed tense and threatened to escalate into a conflict. The young man began to argue with his offenders, trying to defend himself with words. He did not want to give in and tried to prove his case, despite the numerical superiority of his opponents. The crowd began to push him, and all the young man's fruits fell to the ground. This caused even more irritation among the aggressors, but the young man himself began to feel lost and helpless. At that moment, a bald young man approached him and offered to help, flexing his fists. His determination and readiness to engage in a fight immediately made it clear that the situation could quickly escalate. The bald man screamed, realizing that he was facing a group of parasites, those who only knew how to create problems for others. His voice sounded menacing, warning of danger. All the fruits were scattered, and the beast-like youth tried to catch them, hurrying to collect them back. His efforts were futile, but he did not give up, trying to save at least part of his harvest. The bald character roughly crushed the fruit with his foot, saying that while the boy's family lived, they had caused trouble. His words were hurtful and harsh, causing an internal conflict in the young man. The young man thought that he and his father grew the highest quality fruit and could not cause trouble. He wanted to become as strong as the hunters, but the bald man clearly wanted to suppress him, ready to step on his head. The boy noticed that the dog stood up for him and felt unexpected support. He was surprised and pleased that such a loyal friend was ready to stand up for him in a difficult moment. The dog growled, truly protecting the boy, showing courage and readiness to fight. This amazed the young man, who did not expect such devotion and strength in a small animal. The group of attackers did not understand what kind of dog was in front of them, and wanted to crush it to break the resistance of the young man. Their cruelty and aggression knew no bounds. At that moment, Kai arrived and sternly told the dog not to release flames in the middle of the city, realizing that magic in a public place could cause big problems. He took control of the situation. The offenders turned around at the young man's cries and saw the rest of the hero team approaching him. Their appearance increased the tension, and they began to wonder whether it was worth continuing the fight. The dog began to talk to the team, which greatly surprised the offenders. He was told not to meddle in local affairs, warning about the consequences of interference. This added mysticism to the situation and showed the strength of the allies. Kai suddenly kicked one of the offenders, demonstrating determination and strength. This unexpected blow caught everyone off guard. Everyone was shocked by this action, turned to Kai and opened their mouths in surprise. No one expected such a sudden and powerful reaction. The bald offender shouted that they had to attack, trying to raise resistance. But the hero had already begun to cast a spell, preparing to defend himself and his friends. Kai said decisively that he would deal with everyone very quickly. His confident voice sounded menacing and convincing, showing that he was not going to waste time on empty talk. His magic was so powerful and bright that the offenders, feeling the energy, involuntarily closed their eyes from fear and pain. The magical flow emanated from Kai like a tornado, ready to sweep away all enemies. The boy who was being bullied opened his mouth in amazement. Kai's magic was so strong and sudden that he simply could not believe his eyes. His heart was filled with hope. The character quickly dealt with all the offenders, except for one, the most lively one. This last attacker froze in fear of Kai, who was ready to continue the fight. Kai told the boy to thank the dog for protecting him, and he began to heal him with slimes. The magical energy slowly restored the boy's strength, removing the pain and fatigue. The allies watched this. He instructed his allies to take the boy to a secluded place where he could rest and recover. This was necessary to keep the child safe and give him time to recover from the stress he had experienced. The allies asked how Kai himself was going to proceed. They wanted to understand what strategy he had chosen, and how he planned to deal with this situation. Kai was distracted by the main offender and said that he wanted to take him to the boss. This offer meant that he intended to get information or make a deal with influential people. The hero said that the city seemed to be permeated with impurity and propaganda from within. He felt that something was wrong here, that evil was hiding behind the external decorum. His words made everyone wary. At this time, the princess baked pies and treated the guests. Her care and warmth were felt in every piece, and the aroma of freshly baked goods filled the house with coziness and joy. The guests accepted the treats with gratitude. Everyone praised the princess's cooking, noting her skill and taste. Everyone noted how tender and aromatic the pies were, a real work of art. Everyone ate the wonderful pie with pleasure and silently enjoyed the process. At that moment, no words were needed, only the aroma, taste, and warmth of the friendly atmosphere. This evening became a quiet island of peace for them. They realized that Kai would not return from the investigation today. This news saddened the princess, because she had hoped to see him nearby and share this evening with him. His absence created a feeling of anxiety and emptiness. The princess really wanted the hero to eat her pies, because it was the recipe he gave her. This made the pastries special, filled with warmth. Faf asked Rose to make more because she wanted more. These were sweet and touching moments when the children allowed themselves joy and trust, opening up to each other through simple desires and friendly warmth. Anna began to shout discontentedly, expressing her irritation and anxiety. Her voice became louder, and in it one could hear anxiety for the princess and fears about what was happening around her. The princess looked at Anna a little disapprovingly, as if reminding her that making bad comments and saying negative things was not the best way to solve problems. Anna angrily scolded Kai, accusing him of putting the princess in danger and getting her involved in trouble. She was worried and did not hide her feelings. Kai calmly apologized for the disturbance and began to continue his speech, trying to calm those present and explain the situation in more detail and reasonably. He said that the agreement involved aristocrats with ties to the royal family, which complicated the situation and gave it special importance and delicacy. The princess listened attentively and was very surprised by what she heard, realizing that the matter was more serious than it seemed at first and that her help might be needed. She asked Kai how exactly she could help in this matter, showing her willingness to support and contribute to solving a difficult situation. Kai said that he wants to gather the beast people and hold a meeting to unite them and discuss the current problems and find solutions. At this moment, the bug began to explain something. He said that the basis of the city's flourishing trade was the high-quality products produced by the beast-like people, which emphasized their importance and role in society. He also spoke about the plans of the aristocrats, the guild, the mayor, and the bandits, who were all closely connected. Their interests coincided, and they plotted to maintain power and control over the city. Their common goal is to drive the superhumans out of the city in order to maintain their position and prevent change. They saw the beastmen as a threat to their influence and were willing to do anything to get rid of them. The incident with the fruit was proof of their treachery. Magic was used to artificially spoil the harvest, framing the beasts and sowing distrust among the inhabitants and the authorities. The Count was confident that no one would guess about his collusion with the guild. He considered himself cunning and prudent, thinking that he could hide his true intentions and manipulate the situation. In a couple of days, an attack was planned by bandits who had infiltrated the city specifically for this event. Everything was carefully prepared to destabilize the city and increase fear among the residents. After that, it was the turn of the Coin Guild, which had to play its role in these events, aimed at maintaining order in its own way. The Coin Guild sought to save the city from the Beastmen's rebellion by suppressing them by force and eliminating the threat in their own way, sparing no cruel measures. The plan was to capture all the beastmen and sell them into slavery, and then the bandits would cover their tracks and hide the traces of the crimes, creating the appearance of order. The bug said that the parasites had revealed all the plans and the secret meeting place. People were shocked, realizing the seriousness of the threat. Now it became clear that the situation was much more dangerous than it seemed before. Beelzebub the bug was Kai's loyal subject and a master of interrogation and torture. His methods were brutal but effective. He extracted important information from enemies, revealing their plans and weaknesses. Thanks to him, allies gained an advantage in difficult situations. Beelzebub tortured the prisoners, finding out details about the beasts and their whereabouts. He spared no one, forcing them to tell the truth under the pressure of pain and fear. The people were shocked to hear that the guild was going to attack and frame the beastmen to drive them out of the city. This situation caused mistrust of the authorities and fear of violence that would destroy the peace. The girls listened to the story, and Anna said that there was little time for the troops to get here. The princess confidently declared that Kai would take control and protect the city, instilling hope and confidence in the hearts of those present. Everyone was shocked by what they heard. Fear and anxiety penetrated every heart because the threat seemed real and inevitable. They understood that a difficult test was ahead and not everyone would be able to pass it without losses. The young man remembered that his parents had already collapsed from worry. Constant stress and fear for the future had affected their health, leaving the boy alone with a heavy burden of responsibility and hope for the best. He became sad, realizing that no one would believe in the horror that was coming. A feeling of loneliness and hopelessness overwhelmed him, but deep down he was not going to give up and wanted to fight for justice. At that moment, someone gently took his head, supporting and calming him. It was Kai, who with his presence and warmth brought a little light into the darkness of the approaching dangers and gave the boy the strength to continue the battle. Kai asked the boy what he wanted and how he could help. His care and attention showed that he was not just a leader but also a true friend, ready to support in difficult times and help cope with difficult trials. The boy clenched his fist, gathering his strength, and began to speak. His voice sounded determined and full of conviction. He was ready to fight for his future and protect his loved ones despite all the difficulties. He loudly declared that he would not allow their fruits to be exploited and used for evil. He wanted to protect the city and the beasts from those who wished to harm and destroy their lives in safety. Everyone heard these words and turned their attention to the young man. His courage and determination inspired those present, showing that even one person can become a symbol of struggle and hope in the most difficult moment. The beast-like creatures who were nearby unanimously supported the boy. It was not just the support of words, but the power of true unity that could change the course of events and protect them from the impending danger. Hearing the encouragement, a tear rolled down the young man's cheek. It was a tear of relief, hope, and confidence that they were not alone in this fight. Now they had the strength and faith to confront the enemy and preserve their future. There was a commotion, with people whispering restlessly and moving around the room. Kai calmly said that all this commotion was the influence of the boy's family. The boy's name was Sira. Sira wiped away his tears, trying to contain his emotions after the whole story. He thanked Kai, his older comrade, for his help and support. His voice trembled and his eyes sparkled with sincere gratitude. Kai looked at the young man with a serious but warm gaze and said that gratitude was not needed. They would protect their city together, because it was their common home. Strength is in unity, and no one would be left alone to face danger. The people around heard Kai and looked at him with determination and hope. The fire of struggle lit up in their eyes, and they realized that they should not retreat in the face of difficulties. This support inspired and raised their spirits. The villagers then admitted that most of them were farmers, women and children who did not know how to fight or defend themselves. They were afraid of the upcoming fight because they had never held a weapon in their hands and were not prepared for violence. Kai honestly said that he could deal with the enemies alone, but he cannot leave these people without help and continue to defend the city alone. Victory requires unity and participation of everyone. He stressed that if the beastmen do not show that they are capable of defending their place, then the whole struggle will lose its meaning. Only their strength and determination will help preserve the freedom and security of their native land. The hero assured that he would spare neither strength nor effort for those who were ready to fight for freedom. These words inspired all those present and filled their hearts with determination and hope for a bright future. The girls looked at Kai in silence, trying to understand his thoughts and plans. Their eyes showed respect and curiosity. What was he planning? Their gaze was full of hope and expectation of change. Several days later, in a dark cave in the middle of the forest, the Silks were attempting to revive the demonic beast Tawadi. Their goal was to send it to Papra to destroy the city and wreak havoc. The girl reminded that the sum of 100 million is not a cheap deal, and everything must be done carefully and without mistakes. She emphasized the importance of precision because the success of their plan depended on the correctness of their actions. A few more hours and Papra would be in ruins. The girl and the man had a minor quarrel over their differing methods. Her name was Mrs. Neal, and she was unhappy with her partner's approach. The man claimed to be acting on behalf of Germa and ordered the people to dissolve. They began to literally melt and disappear, turning into smoke. This magic shocked the girl and caused her great fears. Mrs. Neal was in complete shock. Her mouth was open in surprise and horror. She did not expect such cruelty and the scale of what was happening. Her internal conflict was growing, and she tried to comprehend the situation. The man said he would only spare the women because one of them was a major contributor to their cause. It was a display of pragmatism and cynicism, an indication of how cold and calculating their plans were. He ordered her to leave while he was still in a good mood, hinting at a threat in case of disobedience. Such a tone left no room for objections and showed who was the boss in this pair. Mrs. Neal frowned and was angry with him, but she knew it was useless to argue. Her anger was contained, but inside she was seething with discontent and disappointment at her partner's actions. Meanwhile, the character was shouting at everyone to evacuate immediately to Barca, a city where they could find protection and shelter from the impending disaster. This was an attempt to save as many lives as possible. The bugs flew in the air and carried the message of approaching danger. Their small bodies were carriers of important news that could save the city from disaster if they heard and responded in time. The bug flew to Kai and reported alarming news. Unknown individuals, demons, were going to attack the city. This information caused Kai serious concern. Kai thought that the demons seemed to have smelled the scent of the holiday and decided to take advantage of the moment. Their appearance was timely, but dangerous, and he knew that he had to act quickly and decisively. He said it was time to check how the beastmen were training and what results they were getting. This was the key to defending the city. Trained defenders could stop the enemy and protect civilians. Meanwhile, the scoundrels, disguised as beasts, decided to attack the city from within. They hoped to use deception and stealth to seize power and sow chaos among the inhabitants. The man, one of the leaders of the attack, ordered his allies to loot everything they could find. Their greed and avarice drove them to cruelty, destruction, and violence. They wanted to take as much loot as possible. The accomplices took the order with delight and prepared to flee with the loot. For them, it was a game, a chance to get rich quickly and escape unpunished. They did not think about the possibility of being caught. They decided to start with a particular house that looked rich and suitable for their purposes. This house became the first stop of their destructive raid operation. Suddenly, they were stopped by a boy, a beast-like protector. His courage and determination surprised the attackers because they did not expect to meet resistance. They turned around and told the boy it was time for him to sleep, trying to scare him or intimidate him. However, he did not retreat, but rushed at them with magic and courage. Using magic, the boy stunned one of the attackers, sending a powerful blow that knocked him unconscious. He fell to the ground, showing that the beast-like creatures were capable of defending their home. The boy looked at his hand and was happy with his success. The magic worked. He had been taught this by Kai, who had invested strength and faith in every beast-like creature so that they could protect themselves and the city from the impending threat. A few days ago, after the meeting of the beastmen, intensive training began. The city was preparing for a possible attack, and everyone understood that physical and mental preparation was needed to withstand the enemies. All the beast-like creatures were gathered in the main square for instruction and training. Here they received their first knowledge and practical skills necessary for defense and combat. Faf began to inspire the assembled with her inspiring speeches. She asked them to call her teacher, promising to guide them on the path of strength and courage so as not to fear enemies and to protect their home. To develop physical strength, training was conducted. The beast-like creatures ran, did push-ups, and performed other exercises. This helped them become stronger and more resilient for the upcoming trials. Kai spoke about the importance of being able to fight back against gangs and protect the city from attacks. He emphasized that determination and training are the keys to victory, as enemies cannot defeat a united community. According to Kai, the number of bandits simply couldn't compare to the number of beastmen. This gave hope that together they would be able to withstand any threats and maintain peace and order. The mayor was looking for a new girl, but for him it was just a game of power and control. His choice was cynical and heartless. He did not see feelings in it, only a tool to strengthen his position and influence. The girl he had noticed looked at him with frightened eyes. She understood that her fate could be cruel and unfair, and she felt fear of the future. This scene contrasted with the preparations of the beastmen, some preparing to fight for freedom, while others were prisoners of power and fear. It showed the depth of the conflict in the city. The girl's foot quickly approached the man's nose, suddenly catching him off guard. This unexpected blow threw the count off balance and showed the strength of the beastmen, ready to fight for their city with determination. The girl began swinging her fists, attacking her opponent with grace and fury. Her movements were precise and fast, demonstrating training and confidence, which struck fear into the hearts of her enemies and inspired her allies. The count fell to the ground, stunned by the force and suddenness of the blow. His fall symbolized the beginning of a new era, an era of resistance by the beastmen and the end of the enemy's actions with impunity. She began to read the mayor again, pointing out his mistakes and weaknesses. Her words were sharp and convincing, forcing the listeners to think about what was happening and causing a change in mood. Meanwhile, the heroes had already laid waste to many bandits, knocking the enemies down and reducing their combat capability. This gave hope that the fight would soon end with the victory of the beastmen. Therefore, they should have been able to defend the city and protect their families. Their unity and persistence were stronger than their opponents expected. The young man proudly declared that the city was saved by its own strength and courage. His words inspired everyone present, emphasizing the importance of unity and self-confidence. The bandits were weaker than they thought. The beastmen dealt with them very quickly, demonstrating their strength and preparation. This changed the balance of power and strengthened the defenders' positions. All this was very good. The tension eased and people calmed down, feeling temporary peace and security. The hope for a better future became more tangible. The princess received instructions from Kai. It was too early to relax. The upcoming tests required vigilance and preparation, so she had to remain focused and attentive. She had many questions, and Kai advised her to watch. He understood that time for reflection would come later, but now it was necessary to study and analyze the situation in order to be prepared for the future. Meanwhile, the city began to get into a turmoil. The beastmen were accused of colluding with the bandits and preparing to attack the city. This statement was made by Cider, sowing mistrust and fear among the inhabitants, which worsened the situation. The young man spoke out against the accusations, claiming that the beastmen had been framed. He tried to convey the truth to the villagers, explaining that it was a lie and manipulation aimed at dividing society and weakening their defenses. Kai noticed the many bandits that had been captured, which surprised the guild leader, who had not expected such efficiency from the beastmen. This was proof of their strength and organization. The guild leader began interrogating the prisoners, trying to find out the truth and understand the enemy's plans. His questions were sharp, and he demanded honest answers in order to protect his interests. Suddenly, one of the gang members cracked and confessed. His words could change the course of the investigation, revealing new details of the conspiracy and intrigue. He was asked if they really wanted to get rid of their comrades and take all the glory for themselves. This sowed doubt and tension in the ranks of the bandits, tearing them apart from within. The hero assured that the townspeople would not believe the empty words and babble of the bandits. He believed in the power of truth and justice, which would ultimately triumph over lies and betrayal. The townspeople listened attentively and found the story very plausible. They began to doubt the accusations, seeing the beast-like creatures not as enemies but as defenders of their city, ready to fight for peace and justice, which gave them hope. The beastmen successfully captured all the bandits, exposing the guild as traitors. This became a turning point, strengthening the citizens' faith in their protectors and showing that truth can be fought for together. Suddenly, a guild member pulled out a weapon, escalating the situation. It was a desperate move, an attempt to maintain power and intimidate the enemies. Tensions rose sharply, and everyone waited to see how the hero would react to the threat. He demanded that the hero reveal his name, threatening him with a sharp sword. This challenge tested Kai's courage and determination, forcing him to take his fight for justice and the protection of the city to a new level. A thorny weave was used against Kai, a trap that bound his hands. He seemed immobilized, but inside he was seething with energy and strength, ready to break through and win, despite external limitations. Kai calmly replied that he was simply Kai, a name that commanded respect. His confidence and calmness showed true strength of character, showing that true power does not depend on physical shackles. Despite the trap, Kai moved quickly and dexterously, demonstrating skill and willpower. His ability to react quickly and take advantage of opportunities made him invincible even in difficult conditions. He skillfully turned the guild's weapons against them using his agility and wits. It was an unexpected move that completely changed the course of the fight and brought victory to the beasts. The guild was defeated. Its members began to argue and blame each other. With one powerful blow, Kai ended the battle, proving that unity and determination can defeat even the strongest enemies. Kai modestly said that he only helps those in need a little, showing his willingness to support the weak and inspiring others to take responsibility for protecting the city. He asked those present if they wanted to become heroes. Kai offered his help, opening the way to unite and fight together for freedom and justice, motivating everyone to show courage and strength. The character asked if it was really Kai. They answered that yes, he was the son of the huntress Maria Heinemann, a young man with a strong heritage and destiny. Kai now serves Princess Rosemary and plays an important role in the life of the city. His actions are responsible for the recent noise and unrest that has engulfed the streets. Meanwhile, the heroes rushed about important matters. But not everyone believed in the ability of this seemingly weak boy to cope with the parasites threatening the city. Doubts and distrust gripped many because Kai's appearance and age did not inspire confidence. The information from Mrs. Rose was reliable, confirming beyond a doubt that Kai was in the city and playing an important role. The news gave the team confidence, despite the skepticism of some of the heroes. The heroes received a letter from Count Getty, who suspected the Koan Hero Guild of deception. This created tension and the need to investigate the conspiracy in order to protect the city from internal threats. The first step was to catch the masterminds of the plot. Johnson was the head of the investigation, and Orga was the hunter. The heroes were ordered to capture either the Count or the Mayor and find the guild leader to neutralize them. These figures were key to the conspiracy threatening the city. Their apprehension became a priority. In the midst of the investigation, Orga suddenly turned to the Mayor, saying that they needed to talk. His voice was urgent and serious. Without waiting for an answer, he quickly headed for the door. The next second, the Mayor was suddenly thrown out of the room. He literally flew out with such force that he did not even have time to understand what had happened. The hunter was shocked by what he saw. What he noticed changed the whole picture abruptly. His gaze stopped on the beast-like girl coming out of the same room where the Mayor was. He couldn't believe what was happening. He saw a girl, a beast-like and determined woman who had probably beaten up the Mayor. This discovery was frightening and at the same time made him wonder who was really in control and what forces were at work in the city. He looked at her carefully and put all the facts together, putting them together into a single picture. Everything pointed to the fact that the beast-like ones were playing a big role in what was happening, and the situation was much more complicated than it seemed at first. The girl said that the hunter had come just in time and intended to go to his comrades, Kai's subordinates. The hunter agreed, realizing that with joint efforts the course of events could be changed. He thought for a moment about Kai's subordinates, imagining their strength and determination. These people could be the key to saving the city and solving the many mysteries hidden behind the veil of intrigue. At the same time, Cohen's group moved beyond Popra's outer walls, preparing for action. It was a risky move, but a necessary one to counter the looming threat. Meanwhile, the hero was observing the situation when he was approached with a report. The information was critical and could change the course of the fight for the city. He was told that a group of bandits had indeed attacked the city, but the beastmen had captured most of them. This confirmed the strength of the defenders and gave hope that order would soon be restored. This news shocked the hero. The scale and seriousness of the attack turned out to be much greater than he expected. This made him doubt the safety of the city. He continued listening and realized that the villagers had repeatedly mentioned coins being involved in the plot, and that they were being collected by a man outside the city walls, making the threat even more serious. At that moment, the heroes opened their mouths in amazement, seeing a monster in them. They did not understand what was happening in the city and what forces were fighting among them, threatening all the inhabitants. Anna listened and said that she heard something. Her intuition alerted everyone, because at that moment the silence was unusual and disturbing. She peered carefully into the corridor, expecting that something was about to happen. The princess stood nearby, clearly unhappy with the situation. She complained that Kai always did things his own way, without explaining his actions to anyone. Her irritation grew because she wanted to understand what was happening around her. The princess insisted that Kai at least explain his actions to her a little. She felt that he should share his plans and give her the opportunity to intervene or help, but he remained a mystery to everyone. Suddenly the girls noticed that someone had entered. Their attention turned to the door, and everyone immediately became wary. They felt that this person's approach would change the course of events, and they prepared for the unexpected. Johnson burst through the door, shouting Mrs. Rose's name. His appearance was sudden and filled the room with excitement. His voice was full of anxiety, and everyone immediately realized that the news was important and urgent. The heroines turned around at the same time and were shocked. Their eyes were wide open and their faces expressed bewilderment and anxiety. They looked at him questioningly, trying to understand the reasons for his sudden appearance. Johnson stood at the door, creating tension and anxiety. His presence seemed to hang in the air, making everyone feel that the situation was becoming critical. Johnson apologized for the sudden intrusion and explained that he had come at the request of the Central Guild. His words were serious, and he was ready to tell important information that could affect the fate of everyone. Anna asked the hero why he was so excited. The princess, on the contrary, was glad to see him, hoping that his arrival would bring good news or a solution to a difficult situation. Johnson began shouting, declaring that they should forget about him. He said that there were more important things to do now than talk and argue. His determination and loud voice emphasized the seriousness of what was happening. The girl looked at Johnson with distrust, not understanding his motivation and intentions. Her eyes expressed doubt and anxiety because she could not understand why he behaved this way and what he wanted to achieve with this behavior. The characters turned around and saw something that made their eyes widen in surprise and horror. It was an unexpected discovery that everyone understood as the beginning of a new chapter in their story. They saw one of the four world demons, Dowdy. The creature caused horror and bewilderment because its appearance meant a serious threat to all living things. Its ominous aura filled the air with fear and darkness. Everyone screamed that the seal of Taoti had been removed. The demon screamed at them, spreading fear and chaos. His voice was menacing and commanding, confirming the danger he posed to the world and the people of the city. A few minutes before the monsters appeared, Kai watched the people outside the city's outer walls. He tried to understand their thoughts and moods, wanting to find the right way to help them and protect the city from the impending danger. People were puzzled as to why he had gathered them. The hero decided to heal their wounds, restore their strength, and prepare them for the upcoming battle. His care inspired trust and instilled hope in their hearts. He understood that after restoration, these people would be able to protect the city from the attacks of monsters. He saw their potential and prepared them for a hard fight for survival and freedom. Suddenly, strange growths began to emerge from the ground. They grew slowly, like living tentacles, causing alarm and fear in everyone present. Animals began to emerge from these shoots, a variety of creatures, some of which seemed wild and dangerous. Their appearance caused mixed feelings of surprise and fear. Soon there were a lot of them. Monkeys, tigers, and other animals filled the space. The scale of their appearance amazed the imagination, and people understood that this was a serious threat. People were frightened and their mouths opened in horror and surprise. It was unexpected and scary. Such a phenomenon threatened to destroy everything they knew and loved. The hero thought that the monsters were mysterious creations of Dao Tai. He knew that it was almost impossible to defeat them. This increased the tension and fear because the fight for survival became more and more desperate. The character screamed that he couldn't handle such monsters alone. He realized the need for a team and strategy to stop the destruction. It was clear to him that unity was the key to survival and protection. Kai stated that their job was to defeat the monsters, because they were heroes. His words were inspiring and morale-boosting, calling on everyone to unite. He believed in the power of unity and determination that could change the outcome. He called on everyone to show courage and not retreat in the face of danger. This cry became a key moment, raising morale and self-confidence. The heroes and residents felt a surge of strength and were ready to fight to the end. The people ran towards the city, but they encountered an invisible wall blocking the entrance. This caused them to grow tense and afraid. They found themselves locked outside, realizing that there was another obstacle in front of them. Kai explained that one of his subordinates had surrounded the city with an invisible wall. It was a powerful defense designed to keep demons out. The wall ensured the residents' peace and safety. The demons would not be able to enter the city thanks to the wall, so the battle could be fought from the outside. This inspired hope and confidence in the successful outcome of the battle. The defenders had a chance to prepare and fight back the enemy. The guild members were frustrated and hopeless. Their plans were falling apart, and they knew the consequences would be severe. They had a choice: give up or try to fight on. They asked Lord Kai to spare them, hoping for mercy and leniency. But their fate depended on the hero's decision and the strength of their own actions. The guild members began to quarrel among themselves, arguing and blaming each other. The tension grew, and their unity began to crumble before their eyes. At this critical moment, no one paid attention to the danger. Suddenly, a monster appeared behind one of the characters. Its huge mouth opened wide. It was going to grab and eat him. In a panic, the hero did not have time to react, realizing the mortal threat too late. The monster immediately grabbed and swallowed the character right in front of his comrades. They stood with their mouths open, overcome with horror. Blood flew around, increasing the shock and hopelessness of the situation. Cider looked at the monster approaching him in fear. He pulled out his whip with spikes and shouted that he would deal with it. After that, he immediately rushed to attack it. The protagonist watched the events calmly from the wall. Kai said that they must either win and survive, or lose and part with life, so they must try. At this time, they began to knock on the bell and shout that demons had attacked them. All residents should not leave their homes. The beastmen looked in the direction from which the attack came. Rose didn't understand why the heroes needed to remove the seal from the legendary beast. The man replied that he didn't know, but the protagonist seemed to have taken coin outside the walls to fight the monsters. The princess replied with concern that if that Taudi was real, the hero's powers would not be enough, and a terrible disaster would occur. She ordered Johnson to do everything possible to protect the civilians. She was to contact Arnold to have the royal army dispatched from Bars. They complied. However, she was told that it was not necessary. They recognized the new arrival as Kai Jiramakhal's subordinate. He said that he had brought the people who were lying in the city. After that, he threw them on the ground. It was Earl Getty and the mayor, and Ogra. Johnson asked if he had regained consciousness. The subordinate reported that the hunter, seeing him, fainted. Ogra, seeing him again, began to lose his spirit. Jiramakhala added that they did not need help and should not do anything unnecessary. The princess tried to object to them. She said that because of the Daote the whole territory could be destroyed, they should be prepared for anything. Astaroth adjusted his glasses and replied that she didn't need to worry. She said that he should take cover too. But he relayed that the master had said that Mrs. Rose could simply watch from the side. Meanwhile, Cider was fighting the attacking monsters. He didn't understand where they went wrong. They are a guild that received recognition from the hero Mashiro. They have connections with high-ranking nobles and strive for wealth and glory. A hero can't just be a name. What they need is true courage, to risk their lives for others and to stand up to something great and show their bravery. He realized this too late. Destroying more and more monsters, he thought that they would not fall and could. He shouted to his people not to lose heart. Now is their turn, they should all be fine. People supported him. At that moment, a dark energy emerged from the ground, which frightened them. They realized that the true form of the Daudi had appeared. High above them, the face of a monster began to appear. Cider and his men stood below, stunned, watching his appearance. They realized he had come this far. Cider swallowed hard as he watched the monsters appear before them. A large snake appeared among the Daote's tentacles, its mouth gaping open as it charged at them. Suddenly, one of the beastmen kicked her, causing her to fly far away from them. This shocked the guild members. At that moment, the rest of the beastmen suddenly joined Coin. Cider didn't understand why they were doing this. The boy replied that they weren't helping them, they just wanted the culprits to get their just punishment. The protagonist asked if he was sure about that, because these were the people who wanted to sell the beastmen. He replied that he was completely sure. If they left them, he would become like them. The main thing for them was to protect the city. The main character's assistant said that he was determined. Kai replied that in that case they would leave the coin to the Hunters Guild. He told the guy that he would watch their battle from there. The guy thanked him for that. Kai added that instead of these pseudo-heroes they should save their city themselves. He told them to start the second round, and everyone rushed to attack. From afar, people watched in amazement as they saw the battle with the city walls. The blushing princess could not believe that the beastmen were fighting back against Taodi. Saryupa said that if the source is destroyed, the monsters will no longer appear. They must concentrate all their forces on it. At this moment, the protagonist noticed a man hiding among the foliage. He thought that he was distracted by the small monsters and did not notice him at all. Perhaps he was a magician who revived the monster. At that moment, Taudi shouted for Germa to help him, and the disgruntled guy rose up among the trees. Standing on the monster, he said that although he was legendary, he was too pathetic. The monster replied that he simply had to destroy these bugs. Germa ordered him to be quiet. He would use the thing he found in the ruins, the sphere of dominance. In his hand was a dark-colored orb. Laughing, he shouted that he was sorry to waste it, but he would try. After that, he hit the monster's head with the sphere, which froze in bewilderment. Light streaks started coming out of his head. He didn't understand what was happening. The guy said happily that it was a boost. Daudi opened his mouth and his face began to change. Saryupa noticed that he had restored his tail. She said that this was strange, so they should keep an eye out. The snake's head was ready to attack again. Writhing, she delivered her blow, which injured 3 beastmen at the same time. They flew apart in different directions. The girl tried to get up, holding her hand. Sira called her in fear. He jumped on the snake's head, demanding that it stop. However, it did not cause any harm. He noticed that everyone was also fighting, and did not understand why this was happening. They shouted at him to run away. When he was about to fall into the monster's jaws, the protagonist caught him and saved him. The girl was happy and thanked him. He replied that they had worked hard, but that was enough. He called Namiya. He waved his hand and ordered everyone to be evacuated inside his barrier. The assistant who appeared obeyed his order. With a serious face, the guy added that he would handle the rest himself. Standing with his sword in front of the monster, he said that all this was supposed to be a story about how the beastmen stood up to protect their city, Germa looked at him with displeasure and was surprised that there was still one left. Kai closed his eyes and began to draw his sword from its sheath. Germa shouted at the Daotai to deal with him quickly and teach him a lesson. The protagonist said that like him, he was an outsider here. He shouldn't have gotten involved in this massacre himself. Disappearing from his place, he used the second form of sword control, quickly cutting through every monster in his path. The onlookers were shocked by the scene before them. He used lightning speed, dealing many blows to the Dowdy, who could only stand there with his mouth open and could do nothing. The people were stunned by what they saw. The protagonist landed on the ground near the monster while Germa was trying to find out what happened to the Dalot. Kai replied that it was gone. This puzzled the guy, but at that moment the monster began to fall apart. Very quickly, only black smoke remained. Germa fell to the ground and was amazed that he was able to destroy it with just one blow. The protagonist stepped on the remains of the monster and said that he was very annoyed that he interfered. Looking at him with anger, he added that he should not even think that he would pity such a fool as him. Germa began to fearfully tell him to stop because he was giving up. He had nothing against him. He thought to himself that he could not be broken and considered the guy stupid. He added that he would tell everything he knew. The protagonist remained silent in response. At this time, Germa hid the sphere behind his back and thought that if he managed to use his trump card at the right moment, then, using the power of words, he would be able to fight him on equal terms. Sighing, Kai angrily replied that he had a sphere in his hand behind his back and he had to use it. If he was anything at all after changing, then as a reward he would instantly end his life. Jumping up, sweating Germa began to apply the sphere to his chest, saying that this is exactly what he thought. He ordered to take control of the mind. At that moment, black miasma began to spread from the ball in different directions. He started laughing loudly, and white streaks started to appear from the sphere on his face. His glasses fell off his face and a mask formed in their place. He stuck out his tongue and said contentedly that this was excellent. He couldn't compare to this power. The protagonist said tiredly that he couldn't shut up. Germa shouted at him that he was attacking because he didn't have much time. He started using magic, which he directed towards the guy, ordering him to perform an explosion in his right hand. Kai brushed off the attack easily, not realizing what had happened. His opponent began to insult him and direct more attacks with his power towards him, ordering him to break, grab, or tear him apart. However, none of them reached the protagonist. Even the curse of the spirit word is just magic. If this magic is weak, then it does not pose a threat. The boy wondered if this was all he could do. Germa was perplexed that his power had failed again. After all, it was the very power of the spirit. He tried to understand why he couldn't do anything. With one movement, the protagonist hit him, saying that it was because he was incapable of anything. His blow sent the opponent flying far into the forest. Hitting a tree, he tried to say something. There was a large, jagged wound on his side. Kai said he was bored, like a bug. He added that he would be punished for interfering. After that, he called for Vels, who immediately responded to the call. Kai ordered him to extract all the information from him and then do whatever he wanted. He must show him what hell was. He obeyed his order. After that, he turned towards the people who were looking at him with admiration and said that they were returning. At that time, the sun began to rise. The princess who met him told him with a slight smile that she was very glad that the main character was her guardian. Kai once said that it was temporary. Javushka said that she understood. However, as long as he is with her, she will always be there. Later, Kai thought that not only was she reckless, but she also said strange things. Given the situation with Rina, was he really that attached to her? He remembered what he had talked about with the princess earlier when they were in the cafe. He cares about Rina, and he cares about Rose. Perhaps these are the remnants of Kai Heinemann's feelings from the past that have not disappeared even after 100,000 years. He said that he would participate in all this until a new guardian was found. He also thought that little would change. He still lives in this world with his friends and does whatever he wants. At that time, his friends were lying next to him. Satisfied, Foth asked him if he liked Rose's cake. He answered that it was quite tasty. There was an empty plate on the table. At that time, the full moon rose in the sky. Meanwhile, in the capital of the kingdom of Amelia Aramgard, a loud scream was heard, which made the guy walking along the long corridor tense up. It was Kai's childhood friend Rina Groth, who excitedly said that Rose had met a guy and they were heading to Barcelona. Kai's childhood friend, the magic master Keech Steinbarg, did not understand why this was happening. The girl responded by shoving a piece of paper in his face, telling him to read the letter to Rose. Looking at it, he recognized the girl's handwriting and realized that she was telling the truth. Rina added that she was worried about both of them. They also needed to go to Barcelona. She quickly turned around and immediately decided to go and organize a carriage for them. Keech tried to stop her, asking if she understood her situation, what would happen if she left. Smiling, the girl replied that if he disguised himself, everything would be fine, so he should get ready and come too. The dumbfounded guy remained standing in the corridor, realizing that they would certainly get a scolding from the teacher. At the same time, lightning flashed above the Lord's residence in the ghost town. The walls inside the building were painted in spots. The man was sitting quietly on a chair and reading a book. Suddenly, he closed it. He said that Germa was no more. This caused confusion among those present. One of them asked if it was true. He replied that his presence in this world had faded, no doubt. Another asked if it was correct that there was someone in Papra who could destroy him. He replied positively. Having risen, he decided what they would do next. The girl asked him if they had finished with their current affairs. He replied that they could deal with that later. The guy added that they had to destroy them all. The man ordered Vinegar to find out who destroyed Germa, and Salt should hurry with activating the ruins. Sugar and Pepper must set out to destroy Papra. Losing is not an option for them, no matter who they face. And also at this time, in the residence inside the caves, two men in black cloaks came to the girl who was sitting on the throne. After listening to them, she was tired and realized that even the Doughty could not cope with the hero. The man said, crying, that he had watched until the very end. Number 33 had not returned. The case did not require control, but he wanted to at least help Neil. However, he was afraid that he was already gone. The girl squeezed the arm of the chair. Clutching her head, she thought that one of the close associates of the Dark King, Ashmedia Neil, had disappeared. She had to be strong until she finished this. With sadness, she thought about being forgiven. Standing up abruptly, she told everyone to listen to her. They were to continue searching for the victim needed for activation. Someone who would be the unique victim for activation. Everyone obeyed her order, and she mentally asked to be watched from another world. She would complete her mission and follow her. At the same time, even deeper in the darkness, divine beings from Babylon gathered. One of them reported that the inspection of the ruins was complete. They had found the gate for their army of demons. The girl clarified whether this was true. Pazuzu of the evil army, beaming, replied that first he himself would appear in that world and then open the gates for Lady Tiamat. She quite agreed with him, adding that he should be faster because she could not wait any longer. Rina and Keech happily decided to go in search of the main character. Meanwhile, Kyo also set out on a path, saying that they will not leave alive anyone who went against them. The demon confidently declared that she would protect Ashmedia at all costs, and Tiamat joyfully rubbed her hands, saying that she would finally get to play. At this time, the main character, putting his sword behind his back, set off on his way with the princess. The beastmen waved after their carriage. Shortly after leaving Kabura, Arnold joined them. He said that he had been informed that permission to return to the capital would be ready in about 2 weeks. Until then, they would have to remain in bars. After these words, he left. It looks like he still needs to do some more days of business related to the events in the city. 2 weeks of delay, but that's actually good. The main character has things to do too. He got to the place he needed. In the middle of the circular square was the Hunters Guild of Bars. They are close to the capital and are a key point on the way to the forest, an ideal place for hunting. Hunters from all over the world come to Hars. There is always a lot of work in such places. The Hunters Guild, which connects the work and the hunters, is simply irreplaceable. There were many people walking around the city who had different weapons. For Kai, who wants to travel the world without restrictions in the future, getting a hunter's license, which allows him to earn money quickly, is a must. As he approached the building, he looked up to see a man looking at him from a window. He thought that Rose and the others had probably found a place to live by now. He should register as a hunter as well. He confidently entered the large hall, where all the hunters were busy with their own affairs. They are divided into 6 ranks, from beginners to superhuman. The rank increases due to the completion of tasks and orders. To rise above rank C, you need to pass additional tests. Once you register, you can freely take quests that correspond to your rank from the guild board. The guy rang the bell at the counter and said he wanted to become a hunter. He asked if he could register there. A girl came out, who, having answered positively, said that she could help with registration. They had long dark hair. She smiled at him kindly. She said that the registration fee was 10,000 auras. She asked if it was okay or not. The guy understood and thought that he must have the amount somewhere in the depths of the box with items. The girl was surprised at what he was doing. She said admiringly that he had a box of objects. He calmly replied that he did not have such skills. She was mistaken. He thought to himself that he had forgotten that this was a rare skill. He handed her the required amount, and the girl apologized and confirmed receipt. Kai thought that it was careless. If he stood out, he could get into trouble again. He needed to hide rare items and skills. The girl then placed a ball on the table, saying that she needed to check his gift and status. She asked him to touch the objects so that they would display all the information. The guy thought about it, because he keeps his status at an average of 100 with the help of the sealed god gloves. But considering the compatibility of the gift, it is worth lowering it to the level of the beginner. He decided to set the average value of the power to 12. And also, just in case, put on the ring that hides the ability. He put his hands and asked if he was doing it right. The girl replied that she would look now. Seeing this, she screamed to the whole hall that the gift is the most useless in the world. Because of her scream, everyone present turned their attention to the main character. The girl apologized for this. The guy calmly replied that it was no surprise that she was surprised. One of the hunters pointed at him, saying that he really was the most useless guy in the world. Another told Liga to stop, because he would report to the boss. As he left, he said that there was no point in defending this traitor, and Mia was too serious. She apologized again, because she had voluntarily revealed the information. However, the guy was happy about it, because it was better for everyone to think that he was weak, so there would be fewer problems. He told her not to worry, even on the contrary, he was grateful to her for spreading this. The puzzled girl asked if he liked it when he was mocked. He asked her to continue the registration. She smiled and told him to let him bend over backwards on the sign with his status and skills. However, she couldn't hold back again, shouting out his power level. All the hunters looked at him again. She realized that she had done wrong again. The guy decided that his status was strange. It was good that he was wearing a fake ring. He apologized and said that he forgot to take off the ability enhancement ring. After taking it off, he asked her to check it again. She agreed with him. As he walked out of the building, he thought that there were too many questions for a simple registration. He remembered how she told him that the registration was complete, he would need to come back once for the final paperwork. After that, she gave him a temporary registration card. She also warned him not to show this ability enhancement ring, he had to be careful with it. Then he walked. He thought that there was nothing to be done, because the way was long. Suddenly, he was surrounded by men, and the guy understood what the administrator was talking about. A little earlier, in Johnson's private room on the top floor of the guild, Ilsa Harnish, a Class B hunter, had asked with displeasure why she, as she was, should be keeping an eye on that boy. An A-class hunter, who was rumored to have refused promotion to S rank. She thought it was overprotective, spying on this guy. She was told that there was no point in explaining, it was better to see it with her own eyes. He was at the reception desk downstairs, she had to go there immediately. After that, she was shown the door. As she walked down the stairs, the girl thought she agreed, but would take a generous payment for it. She noticed the main character, who was talking to the administrator. She also heard people talking about him, saying that the guy was the most useless person in the world. They said that he was very weak and unlikely to achieve anything great. One of the men said that he was said to have a ring that greatly increased abilities. Another asked what kind of ring it was. Was it a treasure level? He would like to get it because the boss would be pleased. The girl understood what they were talking about. Ilsa watched as the boy was surrounded by people. She thought that now she was raising the question of why Johnson had ordered this child to be watched, or rather guarded. One of the men told the protagonist to give him the ability enhancement ring. She realized that they were going to rob him. Apparently the guild had completely sunk. She remembered how the administrator called her. Mia told her that the guy had just left. She asked her to look after him for a while, saying that she was worried. Ilsa thought that in any case, she could not refuse to protect this boy. At that moment, one of the men grabbed the boy. She thought she was going to lose him, but at that moment Kai kicked the attacker so hard that he flew away from him. The shocked girl did not understand what was happening. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist scattered all the people who attacked him. After that, he suspiciously approached the girl who was watching him. Jumping back, she hid behind a pillar, and thought in fear that this was not a joke. He could see through her disappearance skill. At that moment, Johnson appeared, asking if she had seen. Ilsa couldn't understand what was useless about it. It wasn't just fighting power, enhanced equipment, it was something more. The man smiled and said that his real power wasn't that, he was a monster. The girl couldn't believe it. Looking at the protagonist, she asked if he wanted the guy to clean up all of Bars's dirt. At that moment, the guy looked in their direction. Johnson said that they had their own scores to settle, so they would soon clash. He doesn't want to incur his wrath, that's why he gave her this task. However, the girl didn't understand what he meant. A few days later, in one of the houses in an elite area, a man asked angrily whether they always ran away like cowards. The guy replied that every day they gather people and attack him, but this ring is too powerful, they just can't handle it. However, the man yelled at them not to make excuses. It was Mashiro, the hero, the leader of the Four Saint Guilds card, Mayor Hig. He said that people like them were not needed. He was extremely angry and asked if they had found out anything about him. The guy replied that it was Kai Heinemann with the most useless gift in the world. They say he was involved in that Hauberg incident that everyone is talking about. The enraged man realized that this was the one with whom the coin had miscalculated. He asked what else had happened. The boy replied that there were rumors that the magical beast that had appeared had been defeated by the local beastmen, but according to the evidence, it had actually been defeated by Kai. Mashiro replied that it meant that his ability enhancement ring actually had the power to defeat one of the 4 great magical beasts. The boy replied that it could be different. People around started whispering. They would never be able to defeat him, it was impossible. The man remained silent and finished his drink. After that, he squeezed the bottle so hard that it burst and shouted for them to be quiet. If he got such a ring, then even these hated boars could happen. He smiled and realized that his assistant had a plan to get around him. He replied that if strength didn't work, he needed to find his weakness. He had been meeting with the man from the guild a lot lately, and they seemed to be close. Mashiro laughed loudly when he realized his weakness, since he didn't care what methods he used. They decided to take everything from this guy and raise the name of their guild. A few days later, during the annual carnival in Barcelona, the protagonist was walking around the city with girls. A happy Faf asked him to move faster. The guy asked her to be careful. He realized that she was going to go around all the food stalls. Mia cheerfully replied that she was very energetic and cute. The girl was happily eating her meat at that time. The protagonist told her that it was a costume that Anna had made, so he asked her not to dirty it. Mia approached her and offered to wipe her mouth. She thanked her and offered to eat together, to which she happily agreed. The boy thought that since Faf was sharing food, she really had become attached to them. Astaroth wondered how she even had an appetite in such a crowd of people. The protagonist realized that his assistant was there too. He replied that he had only come to see what interesting things could be found, and also because of those people who have been trying to keep an eye on the master for the last few days. They decided it was better to play it safe, and the guy called Shirayuki. He ordered her to find them and find out what they were up to. If possible, she needed to gather as many details as possible. He would leave the decision on further action to her discretion. The girl bowed and agreed with him. Meanwhile, the girls continued to happily move around the city, exploring the various food stalls. It was getting late and people were starting to leave. The guy thanked the girl for playing with Faf. He was very grateful to her for that. She replied that she had fun too. Rose can't just go out on holiday, because she's not in that condition, and Anna isn't the type to leave her alone and go have fun. Mia smiled and replied that it was like having a little sister. The guy remembered Faf saying that she definitely wanted to go to the carnival. Kai said that the whole city is one big playground, it's easy to get lost. And at that time, Mia said that if they wanted, she could show them the holiday. Her offer really helped them out. The protagonist hoped that she would play with Faf again. The girl agreed with them with a smile and added that she would also like to talk to Kai. He did not hear her and asked again, to which she replied that nothing. She added that when she talked to him, he seemed younger. He replied that according to the guild statement, he was 15 years old, although in reality he was about 100,000 years old. Therefore, she could just call him Kai. At this time, they arrived at the place. The girl said that they could part here. Stroking Faf on the head, she wished her good night and said with a smile that they would see each other tomorrow. And when she left, they watched her go. Astaroth said that against the sunset, the color of the girl's cheeks suddenly became invisible. He felt a little sorry for her. Kai clarified what he meant, to which he only threw up his hands in response. Suspicious people were watching the happy girl from behind the trees. Later that night, the protagonist and his comrades gathered in a large hall. Kai realized that these so-called cards were going to use hostages to blackmail him. The people present looked at Shirayuki standing before them, who confirmed his words. His face darkened at these words. His face literally twisted in anger, causing the girls to huddle together in fear. They wondered if these were the same hunters who had been following the main character for the past few years. He sighed and replied that every time they attacked, he drove them away. Astaroth confirmed that they were very persistent. Kai said that to avoid noise he did not destroy them, but perhaps it was worth it. Shirayuki replied that they had recently kidnapped Mia, who had broken up with her mistress after the festival. Looking angrily at the headband in her hands, the guy asked if she was just standing there and watching. After all, she is not one of those who will not move without an order, so he wonders what she did. She started to speak, but at that moment a black shadow appeared. Nemesis, one of the goddesses of the alliance who obeyed Kai, appeared. She asked to be allowed to take care of this. Her people were already watching the hostages and the maps. The hostages were protected, so he need not worry. Shirayuki replied that there was no need for that, as she would immediately go and save them. The protagonist stood up and thanked them for their efforts. He decided to deal with them himself. Nemesis pursed her lips in displeasure. After that, he added that he was leaving. The princess remembered that the repeated crimes of the Four Saints Guild, who were supposed to protect the people, were unforgivable. Perhaps it would be worth sending troops from the kingdom to deal with them. The guy took his sword and replied that there was no need to do that she was there, it was his responsibility, he could handle it himself. Nemesis replied that this was exactly what she expected from the master. She thought he would say that. Bowing, she added that they were the enemies of all women, and they would not forgive them either. She asked to let them prepare a scenario for the destruction of the cards. He replied that he didn't know what she had in mind, but if it sent the cards to hell, he was ready to support her scenario. She replied contentedly that the scenario would begin soon, or rather, it was already on its way. At that moment, the maid came in, saying that she had a letter. A little earlier, Mia was walking along the road, humming contentedly. Suddenly blushing, she realized that she had been thinking about the main character all day, and she, so grown up, about the younger one. She shook her head in confusion. She has already caused him so much trouble that she simply worries and watches him every day. At some point, she realized that she liked dating the main character. She felt dizzy from this, because this can't go on, this is abuse of power. Ilsa can be trusted with surveillance, she can handle it, and she must stop seeing him in person. She thought sadly about whether she wouldn't feel good if she never saw the main character again. The girl sat on a barrel and looked at the starry sky. Suddenly, several people appeared behind her, grabbed her, and began to tie her up. At the place where she was, she lost her headband. The main character's assistants watched what was happening from a tree. The girl was carried into a dilapidated building and thrown onto the floor. Frowning, she realized she couldn't move. She was in a church on the outskirts of town. Across from her sat a gloomy man who greeted her. Looking at his face, she realized that it was Master Ma. She asked him what he was planning. For such violence against the guild employees, even the cards would escape punishment. But the man was only interested in Kai, who had acquired a powerful item. She was told that she was only needed to punish him. She replied that she had only recently met him and thought that she was needed to lure him out. He was so kind that he would definitely come to save her. Not understanding, she began to ask why they would kidnap her if he would not answer their call anyway. One of them replied that she should not lie to them, they had already figured everything out. She was currently in a romantic relationship with him and were planning an engagement soon. The blushing girl was shocked by their words. She realized that it was not the misunderstanding that arose because of the words she had spoken to him earlier. She was trying to understand what he was saying. The guy smiled and said that judging by her reaction, they had hit the nail on the head about the engagement. Now it would be fun to torment her. The men surrounded the girl from all sides, who did not understand what they were going to do with her. This caused fear in her. One of them extended his hand towards her, telling her to enjoy the last moments while they played with her. The girl screamed at him not to come near. However, he liked her reaction. After that, he tore the crying girl's clothes. Everyone supported his actions. Mashiro said that he couldn't wait to see his face when he found out that his beloved was studied and destroyed. The man grabbed her chin and told her to cry and scream louder. Trembling, Mia thought about the main character. It was entirely her fault that they had paid attention to him. The girl gathered her courage and, shouting for him not to touch her, hit him with her head. The man's nose started bleeding, after which he hit her back. He also said that if he dealt with her right away, it would be boring. He apologized and said that he tried to be gentle. The girl was losing consciousness, thinking that she hoped that the main character would never get to her. Just then, a guy appeared and grabbed the man's hand. The girl thought they weren't supposed to meet. The last thing she wanted was for him to be here. But in reality, she really wanted to see him. one of the cards screamed, not understanding how Kai managed to get there. The crying girl closed her eyes. The protagonist angrily squeezed his opponent's hand so hard that it began to deform. He wished for him to disappear. His powerful energy broke through the roof of the building. The enraged protagonist looked at the girl lying on the floor. Those present did not understand when he managed to get there. Mashiro shouted to his men to quickly surround him. However, he didn't care. He sat down next to Mia, apologizing for making her wait. Covering her with a white robe that protects the wearer from any physical and magical attacks, automatically reflecting them, he told her that everything was okay now and she could rest, because he had dragged her into his problems. The opponents started to approach him. He had a lot of free time. He stood right in front of them. His gaze was tense with irritation. After that, he started to attack each of those present there. They were shocked that he was fighting against so many people alone. Mashiro thought that this guy had become so strong because of the power of the ring. Now he wanted him even more. He prepared his axe, about to attack the protagonist, but his gaze stopped him. He got scared and thought that maybe it would be better to retreat this time. But he didn't have time to do anything because the main character was behind him, saying that he had sent him an invitation and was now going somewhere. He was talking about a letter that said the girl was in their hands. He was to come immediately to an abandoned church in the southeast. The hostage will be exchanged for a ring of enhancement. He must not resist. Otherwise, the life of the hostage is not guaranteed. The princess's assistant was furious at their behavior. Astaroth noted that for a gang of bandits they worked very quickly. Kai told Nemesis that he didn't know what she was planning, but he would go where he was called. She replied that everything was going according to her script. He ordered them not to interfere because he would handle it himself. He presented his sword to the guard boss, who was sweating in fear. The protagonist furiously asked him if he thought he could get away unscathed after angering him. The panicked man didn't know what to say. His henchmen stood around with swords, not understanding what to do. The blood vessels in his eyes were bursting from the strain. Suddenly he teleported to the girl. Laughing, he said that the situation had changed. He held her in his arms. Showing his hand, he said that this was the power of the teleportation ring. The ability enhancement ring he had would also be part of his collection. Kai thought calmly that he couldn't even tell the real thing from the fake. The man held a knife to the girl's throat, screaming at him to take off those gloves and give him the ring, otherwise he would destroy the girl. Taking off his gloves, the boy agreed with him, saying that he would regret it and asked if it would suit him. Astaroth and Nemesis, who were watching the door, were stunned to see their master taking off the ceiling god gloves. Bursting into the room, Astaroth shouted that he was retreating. Kai told him to do so. Mashiro tried to understand what was happening. The protagonist realized that he had not been without restrictions for a long time. Astaroth was furious with these stupid people. Kai asked Nemesis, who immediately bowed and intercepted the sleeping girl from the man. He could only watch in shock at what was happening. He shouted that it was mean to attack from ambush. The protagonist threw him the ring, saying that this was what he wanted, and it was he who took the hostage who spoke of meanness. Mashiro caught the ring in shock. His assistant confirmed with a smile that it was the same one. He put it on in shock, saying that this was the ring that made this guy so strong. Now he was the strongest in the kingdom, no, in the whole world. Kai said that he was basically the same as those who relied on gifts. Even Cider was a more worthy warrior than them. Mashiro, his ring shining, shouted at him to be quiet. After all, he didn't need him anymore because he had nothing to fear. He rushed at him with his axe. He also ordered all his minions to torture him together. They all immediately rushed to attack him. Swinging his axe, Mashiro laughed loudly. The protagonist stood calmly with his blade, using the true school of the sword, the style of one blade. He used the first form, dealing a single blow to the opponents. People around him started to literally fall apart. Mashiro didn't understand what was happening because he didn't even see him hit. Everyone around started screaming while the main character stood calmly. The protagonist left him without fingers on his hand. Kneeling in front of him, the man asked in fear if he had slipped him a fake. Kai replied that this ring was exactly what he wanted. He hadn't been wearing any ability-enhancing items to begin with. The shocked man began to pray for help. The protagonist swung his sword at him, saying that whether he had it or not, he was not so weak that he would lose to him, that's all. Lightning bolts emanated from his sword. His magic covered literally the entire building, which was illuminated with bright colors. Where the building had been, only smoke remained. The affected opponents lay on the ground, unable to say a word. Kai called Belzette, who immediately appeared behind him. The boy ordered him to make these people taste the horror. He must push them to the limit, but leave them alive. He obeyed his order. From the black shadow, Nemesis appeared and addressed her master, saying that they were very interested in this matter and had also brought these people. Johnson and Ilsa emerged from her shadow. Kai sighed as he recognized them. He informed them that they would take them to the Hunters Guild. Johnson responded that it was the right thing to do. He watched as the map disintegrated and was nearly destroyed. Marhig will most likely be deprived of his life for all his crimes. Looking at Nemesis, the protagonist demanded that she explain why she allowed the map to kidnap the girl. He reached out his hand to her sleeping face. Nemesis replied that it was important that he save Miss Mia alone, and that they had merely prepared the ground for that. However, the boy did not understand this. Astaroth added that it was useless to explain everything to him. Ilsa looked at him irritably. She finally yelled at the protagonist to take the girl back to her dorm. He calmly replied that he didn't mind, but wouldn't it be better if the guild members took her? She said that they had a lot of work to do here, examining the scene of the crime and so on. They couldn't come back for a long time. He himself had to take responsibility and take her away. Everyone supported her, and the main character also agreed. He picked up the girl on his back and told them to clean up in that case. Looking at the scorched earth everywhere, Nemesis realized quite well that this was the true power of the master. Astaroth replied that he had not used even a small part of it. She asked in shock if this meant that the master had no enemies in this world. He agreed with her and added that the master was very similar to his former master. Looking at the guy leaving, he added that he needed something to keep him in this world, other than fighting. It was getting light outside. The protagonist was carrying the girl past the streetlights. At that moment, she woke up and realized that she was with him. Turning around, he asked her if she was awake and added that he would take her home now. He also apologized for scaring her and asked if she was in pain. The blushing girl sheepishly replied that she was fine. She didn't even know how to thank him. He replied that he didn't need gratitude. She was dragged into this because of him. Pressing herself closer to him, the girl realized that she was very happy. However, the guy did not understand her. The blushing girl replied that her dorm was already close and she could get there herself. Standing up, she said that he did not want her gratitude, but still, she was grateful to him for coming for her. The happy girl hugged the protagonist tightly, who himself said that it goes without saying. The girl continued to hug him for some time, and the guy continued to stand there, doing nothing. The sun began to set in the sky. Some time later, the girl waved to him, saying that they would see each other again. The protagonist confirmed her words with a smile. Nemesis, blushing, watched the scene through the screen, saying that he should have walked the girl to the door. Astaroth watched this, irritated. She added that even going into the room would be nice, to which he agreed. Ilsa hesitantly said that she would like to talk to him. They both turned their heads in her direction. Nemesis confidently said that they are the ones who share the fate of the protagonist. They will not harm what the master wants to protect. As they disappeared into the darkness, they asked the stunned girl not to worry about it. She didn't have time to tell them anything, because they simply disappeared. Johnson realized he hadn't had time to thank them. He added thoughtfully that he had asked Kai to help cleanse the Hunters Guild of rot. It looked like they had uncovered a hornet's nest. Their surveillance was quickly revealed. His power is limitless. The girl said that, frankly, it was scary, but he saved Mia. He replied that he knew him as the son of his old friend. He didn't know what had changed him, but his heart seemed to have remained the same. Ilsa looked away and added that she also thought that the main character and his friends couldn't be evil. Later in the city, the princess saw through the window that the main character had returned. She was glad that, apparently, everything had been resolved safely. This was very good. Her assistant said with displeasure that although he had saved an ordinary person, he had made too much noise. He had no sense of himself as a royal guard. The princess answered Anna that he was only a temporary royal guard, whom she asked to help. She understood that the girl was also worried and waited for him all night. She answered embarrassedly that she simply could not leave Rose to wait for Kai alone. Anna added discontentedly that he always acted at his own discretion. The princess only did what she worried about him, that's all. Rose gently nudged the girl, noticing that she was tired. So she suggested that since it was already morning, they should rest. Both girls went to their beds, and the princess quickly fell asleep, but Anna continued to think. After waiting for the right time, she left the room, and, standing near the window, thought that the princess completely trusts the main character, but she is not like that. An empty street, an empty bridge, an empty bridge. Anna, in a depressed mood, quickly walks along the pavement and suddenly stops and freezes. Many thoughts flash through her head. She leans on the edge of the bridge and a scream escapes her throat. The girl asks Kai for forgiveness. She categorically disagrees that the king and Rose are to blame for the kingdom's dire situation. Anna bursts into the room where the young people are dining. Mrs. Rose looks at the girl who entered with confusion. Kai explains that in a country where discrimination and poverty are rampant, corrupt nobles and rulers blinded by power do whatever they want, the king and Rose cannot properly lead the people and bear responsibility. Anna is advised to go and cool down. The girl herself is furious that they are called incompetent because Rose always thinks about the people. She, profusely apologizing, runs out of the room and starts running down the long corridor, casting one last sad glance at the young people who continue to sit motionless in their seats. Kai thinks it would be best to leave Anna alone and continue their interrupted discussion of politics. Another young, pleasant-looking girl runs into the room and says that it's time for a snack, then Rose suggests taking a break. She wants cookies. The older one replies that she will bake a lot now and also asks her to help her with this. Before leaving, Rose takes one more look out the window, thinking that with Anna in such a state, it would be better to leave her alone. The girl tells Kai, who is drinking something, that they have run out of tea for cookies. Rose, winking charmingly, asks Kai to tell Anna to buy some regular tea. At this time, Anna is standing on the bridge, thoughtfully looking into the distance, and suddenly hears a scream behind her. It turns out to be an elderly woman with a small boy standing next to her and pointing to a huge statue of an ancient deity in comparison. Grandmother tells that in the kingdom, a person's virtue is judged by the blessing received from the holy god of war, Ares, because the blessing is the basis of all values. The boy enthusiastically exclaims that he also wants to receive a great gift and become a knight, for which he receives a warm blessing. Beastmen without blessings are considered an inferior race and must be ruled by people of high virtue, and those who do not have a blessing, alas, are considered incompetent and traitors. Anna remembers that she was taught that the values created by the nobles of the Earth Kingdom are the norm, and she herself is from an ancient line of holy knights and nobles. But Anna doubts more and more whether these are the right values, because the more she strives to be a proud knight, the more doubts arise. A scream is heard behind her. It turns out to be a man showing the goods to potential buyers. Other people have gathered around, looking at all this with smiles on their lips. The whole spectacle is clearly amusing. Anna was always afraid of facing such a contradiction. On the one hand, her upbringing and the values that were instilled in her since childhood and were considered correct. On the other hand, the cruelty of the surrounding world. Anna runs up to the man and grabs his hand, preventing him from striking again. The day she protected Rose flashes back to her. She is horrified, thinking about the consequences. She can't comprehend how anyone can treat a living, thinking, and feeling being like that. The man does not understand what is wrong with whipping an animal, to which Anna replies that people are people. Well, the man angrily replies so that the girl does not interfere with him advertising the product to potential buyers, who, apparently, were unhappy with the fact that the girl interfered. He also says that they are the ones from the kingdom, and they are the ones who decided that the beastmen are traitors and not people. It is very strange to say something about discrimination to those who actually created it. Suddenly, Kai appears, covering Anna with his back and justifying her behavior by saying that she simply doesn't know life. The girl becomes furious again. The man, once again putting on an impenetrable mask, calmly replies that he does not want scandals and that they are simply interfering with his business. He just wants to show the goods to the customers, who are even happy to watch this whole scene. Kai takes a bag completely filled with money out of his breast pocket, hands it to the man and says that there are 80,000 eagles inside. Without thinking, the second one accepts the bag, but says with a grin that it is just an advance payment. The seller casually touches the girl's hair, continuing that the silver baby beast is a rarity and he will ask 2 million for it. Anna was seriously surprised by such a sum, not imagining where the young man could get such money. Kai says that he will definitely pay later, but until then, the child must be treated with care and without causing harm. The man, having got a taste for it, gives 30 days for full payment and says that if he is not paid on time, he will not return the 80,000 Orlov, after which he throws a cloak over the child's shoulders and says that the deal is concluded, and until the transfer, the child will be considered a valuable commodity. Kai, deciding not to argue or bargain, agreed without objection. The man, throwing a dismissive thank you over his shoulder, leaves, taking the child with him. The girl sadly turns around to look at the people who could save her, but at the moment they are moving further and further away with every second. When the people had dispersed and the square was empty, Anna pounced on Kai, indignant that he dared to make a deal in front of the Knight of the Kingdom. Kai replies that it was the fastest and easiest way to save the child, since everything that happened in the kingdom was completely legal. The young man asks if Anna wants to put Rose in a dangerous situation, and to protect the child, what he did was the best decision. Anna, having calmed down, agreed with this. As he leaves, Kai throws in after him that he doesn't understand tea and that he doesn't have any money right now, and that Rosa asked him to buy her favorite. Anna loses her temper again and calls Kai a fool because he easily threw away all his money on an unknown slave and did not leave a penny for needs. Kai responds by saying that the problems of this country cannot be solved so easily and that it is very, very difficult to do alone. He turns around, smiling, saying that Anna did well, calling her by name for the first time at that moment. This caused mixed feelings in the girl. They decide to go shopping quickly and return to Rose. Upon arrival, they told Rose about everything that had happened, which caused serious surprise at the amount that would have to be paid for the purchase. Rose also adds that she fully supports his idea. Anna, sitting down at a chair, timidly says that she was there and saw how it all happened. Kai replies that this could lead to a scandal or even a threat to life. He also asks for advice on how to earn such a large sum in 30 days, since he cannot take money from the treasury, to which Rose replies that she has one idea. At first, she offers to sell a family heirloom from her hunter uncle, since it is not connected with the people's taxes and will more than cover the costs. Rose also adds that prize money can easily be won if you reach the final of the royal tournament, which is held every 4 years in the Lusahali. Kai has registered for the sacred martial arts tournament and feels like he is trapped. The young man will have to take part in the tournament, since he did not agree to sell his uncle's ring. Rose is sure that everything will be fine and he will not lose, but the young man, having delved into reading the rules, understands that he does not like the entire tournament. He cannot make a mistake, otherwise he will be removed from the fights. While the unfounded trust of others only irritates the guy. Before the start of the first battle, a muscular man, almost twice his height, appears next to Kai. The man asks how strong the opponent is, to which he only grins slyly. The tall man asks his opponent's name, and Kai introduces himself. Zack states his name and says that he is in Group B31, to which the guy calmly also states his group number. The man says with a smile that they will meet in the final tournament, if, of course, they get through. Kai reciprocates, saying that he also hopes for their meeting. And they go in different directions. The thought flashes through Kai's mind that this will be interesting. Baseball's mansion in a ghost town, the girl enters the office and says that she found out everything about Kai Heinemann, and she admits that she didn't really understand anything. The men sitting in front of her ask that even her surveillance skills didn't help, and the girl replies that her farsightedness stopped working the moment Kai took off his glove. She says that she saw with her own eyes how the church exploded and that he single-handedly destroyed one of the 4 guilds. The man asks again, not believing that she actually saw something. The man starts laughing, and the girl says that she was keeping an eye on him anyway. An unknown man in a hat says that Kai is most likely on their side. The man says he will cut off Kai's Achilles heel first. And the girl stabs the photograph of Kai and Anna with all her might. Kai remembers the girl's face, and realizes that the opportunity to earn money is a good experience for Kai, because he wants to live freely as a hunter. Sometimes, you need a lot of money to live. He says he understands that he can make money at the tournament, but he worries whether it's okay to stay so late. Rose says that Arnold is currently busy sorting out the consequences of recent events and cannot return, and they will not be allowed to return to the capital until he is there as a guard. Kai wonders if it's because of him, and the cart happens. The girls calm him down, saying that he saved not only them, but many other people as well. Kai feels like he's fallen for her bait, but there are no other ways to get money quickly. He thinks he's registered and thinks it's time to meet Rose and the others. Suddenly, the young man is shouted at from behind. Seeing the participant card in Kai's hand, people don't believe that he is also participating. The young man remembers these people and thinks that he needs to get out of the city immediately. These people came to the tournament to raise the prestige of the school and began to despise Kai after learning about his gift. The young man leaves, saying that he no longer uses their school's technology and that they have nothing to tell him. The main man in the suit shouts that Kai's very existence is a stain on the school's reputation. They calm him down, saying that Kai will still lose shamefully and shouldn't be paid attention to. Kai finds it hard to believe that he will have to fight with people like this in the qualifying rounds. And after him they continue to shout about upcoming exploits. After 2 days, the first day of the qualifying round of the Sacred Martial Arts Tournament takes place. First, the participants are divided into groups of 100 people. After the gong sounds, the fight begins. Kai adjusts the bandage he bought before the fight for 10,000 eagles. Before the start, Kai analyzes his opponents. They are mostly newbies, and there are no celebrities on the list of participants. Kai thinks about how he can win and thinks that it's still unnecessary trouble, he doesn't need to stand out from the crowd. But this is a guaranteed way to the next stage. Suddenly, a familiar voice is heard from somewhere to the side, and Kai turns his head. The students begin to argue over which of them is worthy of fighting Kai. The young man himself thinks that starting with 3 students from the school and Heinemann is just right. The students argue, accusing each other of wanting to take away their glory. With one close movement, the young man cuts the bandages from the shoulders of his opponents, while the rest are still deciding who will attack first. Kai comes to the edge of the stage, squats down and asks if he can give the bandages to the host, and she says in surprise that only a minute has passed since the fight. The presenter gasps in surprise at the sight of the bandage in Kai's hand. The young man states his number and asks if it is enough to pass. The presenter checks the list, apologizing for the disturbance. Kai is informed that he has advanced to the next stage while his opponents look around in surprise. Spectators hang from the stands in surprise, not believing their eyes. Tournament organizer Aaron understands what kind of young man he is. There are rumors that he has the gift of a mediocrity, but this is impossible. The organizer realizes that it is Kai, albeit in a changed appearance, and wonders why he is participating. The level of skill that Kai demonstrated is only available to a select few. Aaron thinks that the talentless man's gift was a cover to prevent other organizations from poaching him. Rumor has it that Kai was cast out from the school family because of his gift, but no one understands why someone would do that to someone with such talent. Aaron says that since Kai no longer belongs to the school, he can take his school away from him without any problems. The organizer of the championship was already disappointed in the youth in this tournament, but with such data as Kai, he will easily become an elite warrior of the kingdom. Aaron thinks the finale is now much more interesting. Also at night, a furious cry is heard that Kai will pay. He doesn't understand what trick he used. The students stand in front of their teacher and justify that they lost because Kai cheated and used some object to steal their headbands. The teacher looks at them sternly and rejects any suggestions. The students are worried and suggest punishing the vile swindler, but suddenly a voice is heard. The young man says that he will personally fight him and expose his deception. He says that together they will wash away the shame from the school and the audience will witness everything. The others agree with him. They are counting on Riku and waiting for his triumph. And at this time, in one of the bars, a scream is heard again. Rygeister, a D-rank hunter, drinks. He keeps whining that Kai is the most useless person in the world and that only Mia found something in him that suits him better. Hook, Ryga's partner, says that they actually seem close a lot lately, but in response he indignantly shouts that he is superior to him in everything and that it is unfair. Resentment overwhelms him. The man is advised to go and sleep it off, but he begins to behave unacceptably, shouting and swearing, and they try to calm him down. His partner tries to smooth things over by explaining that his friend is very drunk. Hook himself leaves, advising Ryga to go home as well. Suddenly, another man approaches the young man, pouring more wine into his already empty mug. The person sits down, introduces herself, and says that she has only recently arrived in the city. Ryga also gives his name, and the man explains that he made some inquiries about the hunter and considered him the most promising leader of the Balsei Guild team. The man explains the reason for his interest. He wants him to get into an ancient temple deep in the Silk Forest. Ryga is taken aback by such an unexpected and strange request because even A-rank hunters are afraid to go to this temple. Sol says that everything is correct and this is one of the most unknown and unexplored dungeons. And the young man replies that the ancient temple requires much greater abilities than he has. The new acquaintance shares rumors that untold treasures are buried there. the perfect gift for that very girl. Sol hands over an amulet, explaining that with it, Raiga will become a C-rank hunter. The girl complains that the gentleman doesn't play with him, and that's why she's bored. Rose says he has been very busy with qualifying tournaments lately, and hasn't had much time to play. The little girl is sad because she would also like to go and cheer for Kai, but they would stand out too much on site and therefore cannot be there in person. Anna calls out to Rose. She says that Kai passed the second qualifying round, and if the final of the third round takes place tomorrow, the young man has every chance of winning, which will bring him a prize fund of 3 million eagles. Kai languidly says that this amount is more than what they expected. Rose enthusiastically assures Kai that they will be rooting for him through the monitor. The young man approaches the little girl and says that he will finish quickly and they will be able to play with the transformation. She promises to protect Rose with all her might. Kai is touched and strokes the girl's cheek. Everyone gives the young man a very warm send-off. Over the past time, Anna has become very close friends with Kai. On the day of the qualifying round, the organizer came on stage and announced that only 4 participants would advance to the finals. She also warned that losing consciousness or leaving the arena would officially be considered a defeat. Kai stands among the participants, thinking that there is no truly serious opponent among the participants. He has a fleeting worry that he might miscalculate his strength and be eliminated from the tournament. 2 people named Fly and Sigma were called onto the stage. They had already performed in the main stage and were also the main favorites of this selection. Next, they called in a student of the fencing school, Rico Salvador. While the organizer was announcing the last participant, Kai remembered Rick. Kai himself was also called into the arena. The host rather tactlessly asked if it was true that his gift was the most useless in the world. Kai confirmed it. 2 participants stood up for the young man, pointing out that the presenter was behaving disrespectfully and that she should not disgrace the participants' gifts. Rick said that the host was just telling the truth and had nothing to apologize for. He chuckled, thinking that the useless guy should be here. The presenter apologized for her rudeness. The participants laughed at Rick, saying that his weapon is not a sword, but a tongue. The host announced that the final round of the qualifying group was about to begin, and Rick picked up his sword, preparing to teach a lesson to everyone who laughed at him. Kai did not take part in the battle and was only thinking about its desired outcome. Suddenly he was called out to, and the young man pretended to have gone further by accident, while in fact it was a trick to win. Kai wasn't thinking about the fight at all, and that he would have to fight when the sword was raised over him. His thoughts were only that it wouldn't work out as smoothly as he wanted. Kai suddenly sank, and the sword that was raised at one head collided with the face of another opponent, who was also about to pierce the guy with a sword. And the young man began to shout harshly, saying that it was a provocation so that they would kill each other and push them out of the arena, but Kai did not react in any way. Everyone else asked if this was a violation. Meanwhile, other, smarter opponents began to think that Kai was not as simple as he looked and his movements seemed a little different. Suddenly Rick rushed at the young man, shouting that he would punish him. Kai's thoughts were still far, far away from the fight. Meanwhile, Kai carefully grabbed the weapon with 2 fingers, saying that a sword is not a toy to swing for fun, and even a wooden sword is still a sword. Kai thought that it looked like this man would need to be taught the right attitude. Rick's eyes were questioning as his sword didn't even move. Kai passed him, telling him to be prepared for the responsibility that came with it. With one deft movement, the young man took his sword and said that he had intended to have him disqualified, but had changed his mind. And he ordered to watch the entire outcome of the battle from below. With deft and quick movements of his wooden sword, he chopped his opponents, scattering them in different directions and leaving an expression of complete bewilderment on their faces. There was nothing to see from the outside. A fierce battle had clearly begun. The remaining 2 watched this spectacle in surprise, and one asked the other if it was time for them to go into battle. Fly replied that it was a shame that his legs hadn't moved from the start, but he knew perfectly well that if he went for Kai, he would definitely lose. Meanwhile, the young man had gained the upper hand over his rivals and asked the presenter if the fight was over. There are only 4 people left in the arena, and they turned out to be Kai, Rick, Sigma, and Fly. Fly said that he was going to the final tournament with the desire to fight and lose, and Sigma said that their goal was almost achieved, so he would hand over his license here and return with a report. Fly knew that Kai was probably stronger than even his master, but he had to show him his will and hidden strength for the sake of the honor of the World's Magic Institute. Meanwhile, an army of hunters made their way through the forest. They ran past the huge Cyclops unnoticed. Soon the hunters found themselves inside the temple and enthusiastically praised their commander Raiga, and only Hook remained thoughtful and detached. Suddenly, he suggested that they go back after all, because he had a bad feeling, to which Raiga asked in great surprise how he could say such a thing, since they had barely gotten to such a place. Raiga received, "This pendant hides the power of presence, and, in fact, the power of this pendant could run past the monsters unnoticed." A new acquaintance said that no matter how strong the monsters are, they will not notice if the pendant is used. It can also be used by several people. Hook asked incredulously if that guy had such an amazing item why he didn't go himself, but entrusted it to them. Raiga replied that he simply had little experience as a hunter. They found themselves in some kind of hall, and the hunter animatedly said that a little more, and perhaps they would accomplish this great feat, to which Hook responded just as skeptically that there was no guarantee that they would be able to go further unnoticed. Soon, a strange object appeared before their eyes, and they went to take a closer look. Hook warned Raiga, who touched it with his hand, about a possible trap. A mountain of treasures opened up before the hunter's eyes, and Raiga, not believing his eyes, walked inside, enchanted. Inside were mountains, and mountains of treasure. While everyone was in awe, only Hook was wary. When everyone entered, he asked everyone to drag Raiga back. The hunters looked at their prey, happy that they were now millionaires and were guaranteed promotion to C rank. And suddenly, there was a terrible thunder, and the earth shook, and the hunters retreated in fear. A beast's head with glasses appeared from the cave and, in a huge voice, pronounced the names of the hunters. Their faces showed pure horror. Hook was saying that they had to retreat, but Raiga stood there in a stupor and couldn't believe his eyes. Suddenly they jumped up and ran towards their forces. The lion's huge head shouted after them so that they would also shout loudly in praise of him. The lion came out of the cave completely. It turned out that it was the major of the evil army and his 3 magnificent beasts, knights, and he was going to destroy this world to the ground. Previously, there was a local god of the T-level like livestock, and it was sacrificed to perform the ritual of summoning the dead gods. The first goal was to summon Lady Tiamat to this world, and that was the main task. The evil major decided to begin his mission. And the army of evil considers evil to be an absolute value, and its goal is to use the true purpose of evil and turn this world into a paradise for evil, to plunge everything into despair. It was a legion superior to human reason. The boy stands before his parents, who scold him for wasting his gift. They do not understand why he does not want to go to the capital. His family is very poor, his parents are in poor health, and his brother and sister are still very young. The boy runs away into the fields in tears, thinking about what will happen to his family if he leaves for the capital. He sits, looking at the mountains and forests, and suddenly hears a voice behind him. Little Kai comes up to him from behind, saying that he suspected that the boy would come here. Kiss looks away and starts to grumble, because this girl absolutely cannot keep a secret. And Kai replies that his sister was looking for him and said that he suddenly ran away from home. Kiss is serious and responsible, but always tries to take on everything himself. Kai says that there is no shame in asking for help in difficult times. And suddenly there is a cry that it is time to wake up. The black-haired girl will be Kisa. She reports that they should reach Barcia by sunset. The girl's name is Lena. And some time ago they learned that Kai was accompanying Mrs. Rose on her journey and decided to secretly escape from the capital to meet him. While Lena reads, Kiss thinks about how they will need to come up with some excuse in case the master catches them. Lena, meanwhile, carelessly talks about how Kai has become, how much he has grown, and what he looks like. Kiss responds to this that he has certainly grown up, but hopes that the young man has not changed inside, even after receiving the most useless gift in the world and facing persecution. Kiss reassures himself that everything will be okay with Kai. Suddenly there is a rumble and a crash, and Kiss and Lena become alert. Although Lena is so strong that she can rival Knight Commander Arnold, even she began to tremble in fear. Suddenly, another girl appears and turns the card over. Kisa throws it aside, and it takes Lena by the throat. She says that it doesn't impress her at all. Lena sees that Kis is lying on the ground next to the horses. She looks at the unknown girl and asks how she dared to do such a thing. The girl laughs, asking if Lena can withstand even one blow. But suddenly, another man appears and pulls the unknown woman away from Lena, and she asks Chiri what he has in mind. Lena is horrified to realize that neither she nor Keys will be able to resist these people. And the man says quite calmly that if Lena is broken, then everything will go down the drain, because this girl is an important bait for catching prey. Keech furiously screams for the girl to let Lena go, and she, in turn, looks at her victim indifferently. Lena, groaning from her suppressed pride, asks not to kill Keech. The tall man grabs the guy by the scruff of the neck, ready to break loose, but the girl stops him, saying that he also has his own role and they need him alive. The strangers tell the young man to come to Lord Vesper's estate in 8 days. Kai and Lena will be with them, and if the young man is even a little late, the hostages will be eliminated. Lena and Keech exchange glances. The guy asks why people are hunting Kai. The girl, leaving, tells Keech to tell Kai that if he doesn't come on time, then something necessary will happen to Lena. The girl wonders why Kai was their target. The stranger describes what she will do to the girl, which horrifies Keech. They leave, leaving the guy lying on the ground. Meanwhile, another young man named Olga is riding in a carriage and thinking about the fact that he needs to write a report on the investigation of the incident. In a mining town, a conflict between a lord and an advisor escalated. The advisor was from Prince Gilbert's retinue and was trying to illegally seize the rights to the mines. However, at some point, both parties were found dead, and a very strange and disfigured monster was found at the scene. The monster was destroyed, and the incident was closed. But the case proved too mysterious, and an A-rank hunter was assigned to investigate. When Olga arrived at the scene, there was no evidence there. Olga thought that there had been more such incidents lately, and he had a bad feeling about it. Suddenly the carriage stops, and the driver calls Olga, pointing to the scene of the incident. The young man sees Kisa lying on the ground and asks if everything is okay with him. Olga jumped off the cart and rushed to help Kiss, who, with difficulty, raised himself up on his elbows. The hunter helped the boy stand up and led him towards the cart, asking what had happened, to which the young man replied that Lena had been kidnapped. Already in the carriage, he told about those two who said that if Kai did not come, they would turn Lena into a chimera. Olga thought about it when she heard about the chimera. Meanwhile, Kiss continued to say that he could not do anything against them, but he really wanted to save Lena, and Kai was also in great danger. Kiss found himself at a crossroads, either abandon Lena or drag Kai in, but they were both dear childhood friends, and he couldn't choose. Remembering Kai's old words that it is not shameful to ask for help in difficult times, Kai's asked for help in saving his friends. Olga patted him on the shoulder, saying that he knew someone who could easily deal with these guys. Keys asked if Olga could ask this man, to which Olga agreed, but thought it would be best if Keys himself explained the situation he found himself in. He said that they would go to the guild and he would arrange a meeting, and then ask the coachman to hurry. Olga also said that there was one condition, to which Keys resolutely replied that if it would save them both, he would do anything. The hunter only asked to believe Kai no matter what. Kiss considered Kai to be his older brother, and the younger should always believe in the older one. They arrived at the place. The girl at the reception said that the master had gone to the administrative department, so he was absent, but should return today, so she asked the young people to wait. Olga thanked the girl and told Keith that he would have to wait a little. The girl from the reception also added that she heard that Kai had destroyed the cards and that the master was probably busy sorting out the consequences. To pass the time, the young people went to a bar, where they met a girl who knew Olga and greeted him warmly. The hunter asked if she would mind if they joined, to which the girl smiled and began to gossip, talking about Mia, whose loved one had recently left without saying anything, and she was probably offended by him. Kiss said that now was not the time to relax, but Olga reassured him, saying that it was better to wait here, and if they chased the master, they could miss each other. The girl pushed some food towards him and said that it would help him to cheer up, and also added that if he needed to tell her something, then let him do it, because talking directly with the master is something very serious. Meanwhile, 2 more people ran into the room, Ryga and Hook, shouting that something incredible had happened and that they needed to call the master immediately. A girl ran towards them, saying that the master was not here. Ryga said weakly that the master was absent at a very unfortunate time.